Hey, welcome to Chad's Beer Podcast with me, Chad of Chad's Beer Reviews, and special guest Joe Senigaglia. What's going
So,
on, man?
how you doing, bro?
I said your name right?
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I've had my name said a million different times or different ways, but it's fine. It's good to finally actually meet you. I've watched your
Yeah.
videos for a long time and never actually talked to you,
Wow.
so I appreciate you having me.
Thanks. You're one of the few BeerTubers that just goes by your real name. Like, how come it's not? Although, like, when the show starts, it says Joe's Arcade.
Yeah.
So how come, like, your YouTube channel is just like your name and not Joe's Arcade or Joe's Beer Reviews or something like that?
So if you remember, I don't even remember what year it was, but back when I first started doing beer reviews, I think your Gmail account was hooked up to your YouTube account. So
Yeah, right.
My Gmail email was always my personal email, and I realized when I made my channel name Jow's Arcade and Beer Reviews, when I would send emails to people, it would say from Joe's Arcade and Beer Reviews. I'm like, wait a second, I can't have that on my email, and there wasn't a way to change it, so I just changed it to my name.
Mhm.
So that's the reason why I did it. I'm like, dude, I
Yeah.
can't be sending emails from Joe's Arcade to answering work email. Sometimes I'm like, I
Right.
can't do that.
I know.
So,
I've had Chad Pollins at yahoo.com for like 20, 25 years or something like that.
yeah,
I'm
it's like
probably the only Chad Pollins on the planet. So
I was gonna say it's like the old AOL days, dude. I
yeah.
had a hard time getting rid of. I still have Gmail
I've
after all
actually
these
seen
years.
people who still have a at AOL email address.
Dude, I sent a work email the other day to a person with an AOL email address. I'm like, what is happening? It's 2024. This is crazy.
Yeah. By the way, so I'm still finishing up our Arrogant Bastard. So we just reviewed that. I'll have a link in the description below. You got Joe got the big stovepipe
Yeah, I'm still
can. I got
drinking.
the pint can.
Dude, by the way, can I just say real
This make
quick,
me
like
so thirsty.
I'm just saying, it is impressive how quickly you can drink beer. Like I was watching the podcast you did with Kyle. I'm like, dude, you drink beer. I thought I drank beer fast, and everyone always makes fun of me. Like, dude, you drink beer too fast. I'm like, fucking Chad can drink beer fast. I love
I
it.
think maybe just because I have like a short attention span, you know.
I'm here
It's
for it,
like
dude.
I don't really nurse beers, you know.
There's no reason to.
Yeah, it's just like last night, my girlfriend and I we went to this Belgian bar in downtown Sanford, where where I live here in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and because she had never been there before, and like if you've been watching my show, like she's been on like all the Tuesday night beer school, and like so I've always said because like every time we do the Belgian beer, she's like, "This is okay," like out of the bottle. She's like, "I like to try it on tap." So like we went to the Belgian bar and they had Chimay Blue and well, they had like all the Chimay beers on tap. They had Saint Bernardus 12 on tap.
Wow.
Um, and so it's like it was a totally different drinking experience between the bottle and draft. Which I always find I think Belgian beers in particular are actually better out of the bottle because like you get
Mm-hmm.
bottle conditioning on that and you get a little bit
Right.
of age. When it's on draft, they get like kind of like a creamy, almost like nitro kind of texture.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is it just me?
It's funny you saying that because thinking about it, I don't know if I've ever had a Belgian beer on tap. I think it's always been out of bottles. That is
Really? Like in
wild.
the
Yeah.
and you're in. By the way, Joe, you're in San Diego, right?
Yeah. In North County, San Diego. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think, like, are there any Belgian bars around here? I don't know if there are.
There's gotta be.
I'm sure there is. You know what's crazy too is most of my memories of drinking Belgians involve being in Vegas, just hammered. And at the end of the night, we start drinking Belgian beers for whatever reason. Because I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but aren't Belgian beers? Most of them are higher ABV beers, right?
Yeah, for the most most of the stuff that we get in America is because like it's got to come all the way from overseas, you know. It's
Right.
like they're not gonna. It's very rare they ship low ABV stuff here. Like maybe like Palm. That's about it.
Yeah. I have all these
Or
these memories of being in Vegas, just waking up the next morning going, dude, we shouldn't have drank all the Belgian beers to end the night. Just struggle busing.
yeah, like I actually have a bunch. I don't know if you can't really see it on camera, but I have like the Delirium Red. I have because I had to buy the Saint Bernardus 6-pack. It was like a Christmas gift set or whatever, just to get the Saint Bernardus Extra, which is the Belgian single. It's only like 4.5 or something like that. It's pretty low ABV beer.
Yeah.
That's the only way to get it is in the 6-pack, the Christmas gift set. So I have all these Saint Bernardus beers in there.
It's funny. There's a lot of people who are always on my channel going like, you need to review Belgian beers. And it's one of those styles that I just don't drink enough of. And every time I have one, I'm like, I really like this, but I don't know why I don't drink them. I just don't. It's strange.
I know. Well, it's kind of like the beer review just did. It's like I haven't had this in 3 years, and like I'm drinking it, I'm like, yeah, this is really good. But it's like,
yeah, why don't I drink this?
It's like this beer has been around for like 20 years, and like back in 2008 when I first started doing this show, like it was pretty ballsy and edgy back then, you know. And I don't think I forget which episode it was, but it was. I think it took me about a year and a half before I actually reviewed this particular beer. And then I remember like a few years later, this is a super deep cut if anybody remembers this. Like Greg Cook, when of Stone, for years he had like this clean cut look. He had like short hair and glasses, and he was clean shaven. And then I don't know what happened, but he took on this like Jesus caveman look where he got like really
he went
long
mountain
hair.
Man, dude.
Yeah,
I do remember
and
that.
I forget what year. I think it was about 2012 or 13. He started doing this thing where he was like responding to BeerTubers, and he actually responded to one of my reviews. So I was in the corner of my apartment. I had like the BeerTubers table of elements or whatever. It was supposed to be like the periodical table, but it was the beer, like it was all beer styles, you know. And like I'm trying to point out, like this, like what style is this? Is it a barley one? Is it it's an IPA? And like actually, whoa, what happened? Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here.
Okay. My screen just went black for some reason. But I remember that. I'll try to find it. If I can find it, I'll put a link in the description below. I'm sure it's still on there. Greg Cook actually responding to my arrogant bastard. It's something he disagreed with the review. He was just kind of saying like arrogant bastard is his own style.
Right. I remember him doing that because there was this was way back when Rashawn was a beer tuber in San Diego, and I don't know if you remember this, but him and Greg decided to set up a thing where they were going back and forth on YouTube. I mean, it was a total like work.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if people realized that at the time, and he ended up going to his house and like tackling him on his couch. Like, I remember just laughing at going,
it was
crazy.
Totally staged. It was hilarious.
Yeah,
that's because that was when Ryan and his friend they won the homebrewing competition because they had that coconut.
Yeah, they did the R&R
IPA.
Coconut beer.
Yeah, I remember actually reviewing that on this show, and I was disappointed because like I didn't really get much coconut out of it. But I mean, it was still a great, San Diego IPA.
I think from everything that I had heard is they had them switch the recipe a little bit when they did after the contest. And I guess there wasn't as much coconut as was in the homebrew version of it because everyone was saying that this beer is great. It just doesn't have as much coconut as I would like. It's called a coconut IPA. Like, where's the coconut?
That's why I remember I gave it a 9 instead of a 10 because I'm like, well, it says coconut and I'm hardly getting any.
Yeah, that was the rumor that they kind of made him cut down on the coconut. I don't know if it was because of the equipment they were. Who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah, whenever you're using like voodoo flavors like that, or like anything that's like not the 4 main ingredients, is you kind of get into like really like you gotta. Well, I mean, Stone, they know what they're doing there, so I don't know why they couldn't have pulled that off. But
well, and I mean, for you as a BJCP, like back then, I keep saying back then like it was 30 years ago, but even back then when they were doing that, were people really doing, adjuncty like IPAs like that? It wasn't a thing, right? Like nowadays, everyone's adding fruit to these hazy beers, which is driving me nuts. But back then, I don't think it was really a thing, right?
For IPAs, no, like there wasn't like we didn't have hazy IPAs until Heady Topper came around, like about 2012 or 13.
I mean, were they even doing like adjuncty stouts back then? Like, were they doing like?
Well, I mean, there was always chocolate stouts and coffee stouts, like
right.
A lot of the Southern Tier Blackwater series. I used to love. I mean, I still love those. Like the Southern Tier chocolate, Southern Tier creme brulee, mocha, Speedway stout. All these coffee chocolate stouts. But like they weren't like pastry stouts as they are now, where they just like throw all these insane syrups in there,
It is insane. And it's turning into pastry IPA. Like pretty soon it's just gonna be pastry. Everything's gonna be pastry. And we're gonna be like, what
it
happening?
is? It's the freaking I blame hard seltzer, It's I don't know what happened because for years, for decades even, FMBs, flavored malt beverages, those were like for like college kids or something. Like remember like Mike's Hard Lemonade, Smirnoff Ice, Zima.
Yep.
I mean, those were like for your aunt in the trailer park that like Bud Light was as, that's as crafty as she got,
Yeah.
And then they came out with like, those 3 and like other beers. And I don't know what happened, but I remember a friend of mine who worked for a distributor, he said, and this was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. He's like, dude, they're coming out with hard seltzers now. Or you know what I could blame? Maybe not Zima and all that stuff, but Not Your Father's Root Beer.
Yeah.
Remember that one? I mean, and actually, I saw that in Total Wine the other day. That's
I
a
don't know. Oh,
I
go
don't know if
ahead.
that's a beer. To me, I don't consider that a beer. It's a FMB just as much as like a hard seltzer, Mike's Hard, or any of those, because it literally tastes like a root beer, but
It's
it's
insane.
hard, you know. But
Hmm.
I don't consider it like a beer. It's a flavored malt beverage of some sort.
And if you go on YouTube and you search "Not Your Father's Root Beer," those videos get thousands of views. It's crazy. Because at one point I'm like, dude, do I review one of these and just upload it to see if it gets people to come to my channel? I never did it, but I'm like, I should, because literally tens of thousands of views on those videos. So
You could
whatever, I
probably
mean,
get like
they were
a
working.
nostalgic crowd now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, what happened was I think we're kind of around the same age, but I think people from our era that drank, like, I don't know if you remember Sun Devil and Hooch, like those were other flavored stuff, like mid '90s. Yeah, those
Mhm.
we were drinking those in high school because nobody liked the taste of beer back then. And as they got older, like, dude, you remember drinking that? Like, let's do that now. So we'll turn it into seltzers. We'll turn it into flavored malt beverages.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zima was probably the first one, like, because that was basically supposed to be like hard Sprite.
Sprite. Yep.
Yeah, and that's funny. There's
Gosh.
this channel called Weird History Food. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Mm-mm.
Like they always show like crazy, you know, it's weird history food or
Yeah.
weird food throughout like, and they did a whole video on Zima. I'll put a link to that too
I'll
if
have
I
to,
can
yeah,
remember.
I'll have to watch that. I just started. I don't know if you're on Twitter, but I started following an account called Discontinued Foods. I don't know
Mhm.
if you're on Twitter, but that is such a fun account. Like they tweet stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot all about that. And it's
Not
always like
anymore.
stuff that we used to, yeah, that we used to eat. That fast food chains had or whatever.
Yeah, like
It's a fun.
Crystal Pepsi and
Mhm.
the McDLT.
Yeah. What was? Oh, there was another one. Someone had McDLT, and gosh, what was the other one? Oh, the Arch Deluxe. You remember the Arch Deluxe?
Oh
That was
yeah,
one of
yeah.
them. Yeah, that's on the discontinued one recently.
Mhm.
It's funny.
I got a. I don't know if you guys have this out there. Zevia. It's a
Hmm.
yeah. They had these buy one get one for a 12 pack at the supermarket last week or 2 weeks ago. So I got one 12 pack of cream soda and one 12 pack of root beer.
Isn't Zevia the one where it's like the soda that doesn't have, what is it, like non-artificially sweetened or something like that?
Yeah, it's with stevia.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's like that weird, like, I don't know if it's natural or artificial, but this stuff is good for you mix it with like rum or bourbon. You
Hmm.
can't even tell.
Yeah. It's great. So I had like a really bad problem with diet soda. And when I turned 30, I decided I was going to quit soda. So I have not had any kind of soda in almost 13 years. And like all
Wow.
these new sodas that have come out, I'm like, gosh, I bet you those are so good. But I just know if I start drinking them again, I'm going to get back into the whole thing. And it was so bad. It was so
Yeah, I had to get off soda, so like I switched to like LaCroix and bubbly,
Hmm.
and I like those are always like buy two get one free at Publix or whatever.
Yeah.
So I keep those. I drink like at least 2 cans of those a day, sometimes
Oh,
3 or more.
dude, we buy
I don't drink like
the,
Pepsi. I don't drink like Pepsi or Coke hardly at all.
yeah, we buy the, I think they're 36 packs of the Kirkland sparkling water from Costco. We buy them
Mhm.
like three at a time because even my kids now are like just addicted to them. Like it's crazy. I should have bought stock in freaking sparkling water back in the day. Because after I stopped drinking soda, like sparkling water was my thing.
Yeah, it's funny. We're almost like 15 minutes into the show, and I should have like started at the beginning. Is like, can you kind of give like a rundown of like who you are, where you're from, like what you do, blood type, mother's maiden name, last four of your social.
The three, what is it? The security code of your credit card.
Yeah,
So I got,
whatever you want to tell the
yeah,
viewers
yeah. I
or
mean,
listeners.
like just getting into beer wise. I mean, I grew up in California, so we were always around good beer, but I was never. I mean, growing up, my dad was always a macro beer drinker, but
Mhm.
I had heard of Sierra Nevada. I've told these stories before during my YouTube reviews. Sierra Nevada was big where I was growing up, and I remember in high school someone gave me a bottle of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and I drank it. And I'm like, "There's no way I can drink this. This is disgusting." So I drink I drink beer off and on. Like someone's parents were out of town on the weekend. You shoulder tap someone. It was always like it was whatever was cheapest. So like we were drinking like Oldie, King Cobra, malt liquor,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I always thought I hated beer. And there was a day, I think it was right before I turned 21. I was golfing with my dad, and it was a super hot day, and we were done. And we were getting ready to leave, and we are going home, and my dad's like, "Do you want a beer?" And I'm like, "No, I don't really like beer." And my uncle was with us. He's like, "Just try it. Like, maybe you'll like it." And it was a can of Coors Light, which is funny, but I opened that beer up that day on that super hot day, and I drank that, and there was like a light bulb moment. I'm like, "Holy smokes, this is delicious! Like, so refreshing, so thirst quenching." And so I kind of started my journey, with beer. So I started out, light beer drinking. And then when I turned 21, the very first 12-pack of beer I bought from a store was Widmer Brothers Hefeweizen, because I thought I was being like fancy at the time. I'm like, I saved my money for my paycheck. Yeah. And we were putting orange slices in it, thinking we were like super cool. And I kind of just did the whole macro lager thing until I moved back to San Diego in 2011. And I don't know if you're familiar, like Highway 78, they named it like the Hop Highway. So Highway 5 goes north and south and 15, and then 78 connects those two going east and west. And so you have San Marcos, Vista, parts of Carlsbad, and then into Oceanside. And that's where Stone was, Lost Abbey. I mean, back then, they're still there. Belching Beaver was there. Pizza Port was there. So it felt like every weekend people were doing like these brewery tour things, and like you'd get a party bus. And the one weekend I'm like, yeah, I'll go with, my buddies were going. So I went and I sat down. I think it might have been Lost Abbey when Port Brewing was in there. And, they were like, "What do you like?" And I'm like, "Well, I just drink light beer usually." And so I was drinking their lagers. I'm like, "Wow, these are really, really good." And then somebody gave me a West Coast IPA, and I'm like, "This is the greatest thing I ever tasted." So I was on a journey I was on a journey from there. I really like, growing up, I always ate citrus. So I love oranges, grapefruits, all that stuff. So when I drank a West Coast IPA that had grapefruit in it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is life-changing." So my mission was to go and find like the hoppiest, dankest, like craziest West Coast IPAs. And thankfully where I was at, like it was such a perfect spot between Pizza Port, Stone, and then, you go an hour and a half south from where I'm at to Alpine. I mean, back in the early, 2010s, Alpine was insane. I don't know. Did you ever drink any like the OG Alpine beers?
I remember doing a trade with Ryan, Rashawn, San Diego Beer Vlog or whatever. And he sent me a bottle of Nelson.
Yeah.
I think that's like the only one that I've had. Maybe I had a couple others, but I mean, we can't get them here in Florida.
Right. Well, I mean, Alpine since got sold to, Green Flash bought them, and then somebody else just acquired Green Flash recently. I can't remember.
I thought Green Flash closed.
No, Green Flash closed here, but I think there's a place is it Colorado that's brewing their beer still?
Oh, really?
They're brewing Green Flash and Alpine. But anyways, so, once that light bulb moment of West Coast IPA turned on, I was like, holy smokes. And I just was kind of off. And then, as you go to breweries, you start ordering flights, which I now learned that people who work there hate doing that. So I apologize for all the flights I ordered back then. But I started realizing that I like darker beers. I liked porters. I like stouts. But yeah, that was kind of, if I wouldn't have moved back here, I kind of wonder where I would have been with my beer drinking life, because I lived in the Central Valley and there was nothing out there.
That's the opposite of me. I do not apologize, because I love flights, because like, I remember I was saying, like, we went to the Belgian beer bar. What the hell? Why does my camera keep cutting out? All right, take two. All right, so remember how I said we went to the Belgian beer bar?
Yeah.
They've changed, because I haven't been there in probably like at least a year, maybe 2 years, which is really funny. It's only 3 miles from where I live, and they're under new ownership now. And they used to do sampler flights where you could, like, because they have like probably about 20 beers on tap there, and you could pick like any 4, and you get a flight of 4 ounces, for probably like $10 or whatever. Like, oh yeah, we don't do flights anymore. I was like so pissed, because like, it's a Belgian beer bar. Like, everything they have on tap is like high ABV. Like,
right.
Like, you got to commit. 12, like all the Chimay beers. Just the lowest ABV beer they probably have is like Cigar City IPA or something like that, and like that's
like 7%.
Yeah.
I think it was Darwin who I heard, because he was one of the ones, he made a video saying, please don't order flights. Like, it's such like a hard work,
really?
like a thing. Yeah. I'm almost positive it was him who did that. You'll have to ask him.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny because he's a bartender at Sanford Brewing.
Right.
But he works at their Maitland tap room, which is about 10 miles from here. So it's not too far, but yeah, me and Christina went there probably about 2 months ago. I think it was before Christmas. And Darwin, he works the bar there, so we just sat at the bar and just kept getting sampler flights. I mean, I've had everything they make there, and yeah, it's funny because I remember speaking of Darwin, like he kind of like came out of nowhere because like he kind of came in like right as I left BeerTube, like around 20, or I should say right as I left New York. So I moved from New York to Florida in 2015.
Yeah.
I think Darwin started doing his show probably around then, and he just kind of like blew up, and he has like tons of followers. And then when I moved to the place I live in now, this place, I moved here in 2018, so I'm coming up on 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how, but somehow I just found it. Like I started messaging Darwin, and it turned out like he moved to Florida. Not only did he move to Florida, he moved to like 4 miles from where I live, and we used to like hang out like every like Wednesday night.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would go to his apartment, or he'd come here.
So
But then he moved.
you didn't know him pre-Florida. You didn't know him in New York.
No, I just knew him like off of BeerTube.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny because you and Kyle were just talking last week, and you guys are from like the same place, right?
Yeah, he's from Binghamton, which is where my sister lives, and he moved to Albany, which is where I left to come down to Florida.
It's funny, man. Like it's such a like beer tubing is a big kind of community, but at the end of the day, it's such a small world. Like look at you and Darwin, both New Yorkers who are in Florida now, 10 miles from each other. Like it's wild.
Yeah, and it's funny because trying to get, I don't know why my camera. I don't know if it's my camera.
Your camera loves you.
I know. It's funny because trying to get Darwin to come over here or me to go over there is like a very complicated algorithm or something. Because like the stars have to align and like everything has to be like perfectly in place. Because he works a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And I can work whenever I want because of like my line of work, but anyway, you know, I don't know if you want to say on camera, like, what do you do for a living?
So I work, well, I have 2 jobs, but my main job that I focus on, it's a family business. We're in electrical sales. It's all telecom stuff. So guys who build cell phone sites, we supply material to them, which is fun. I mean, there's a lot of people I know that say, you know, I don't know how you work for, you know, with family, but I've been working with my family for 23 years almost. And it's been great. Yeah. But it's, I just was laughing when you said you and Darwin are so close, but it's hard to get together. Like his life is I'm saying his life is so different now. I'm especially having kids, like even you and I trying to get a time together to record this podcast, like his kids are much younger than mine, but it just, dude, when your kids get older and they have a schedule, it is insane. And then like my work weeks are crazy. I get up super early, and then, you know, I don't even get home most days of the week until after 6 o'clock. So you and I, with the time change, was almost impossible during the week.
How old are your kids now?
My oldest son is getting ready to turn 16, and then his brother will be 15 in October. So
there's just the 2 of them.
There's just 2 of them, yeah, 2 boys. Okay, and it's funny.
That's 2 more kids than what I have. Let you count my cats.
Yeah, no, it's crazy too, though, because you know, like I was telling you, my weekends are so crazy, and I always tell my wife, like, I don't complain, but it's like it's a lot. But this is going to be over like before I know it. And I know like in 10 years, I'm going to be sitting with her being like, man, I wish we were busy this weekend. Like I wish we had 50 different things we had to be doing with them. So I'm glad we finally like were able to sit down and hang out.
Yeah. And your sons play Little League?
So my oldest son is starting his sophomore season of high school baseball. And then my youngest son they play travel baseball, which is completely different than when I was growing up, because there was no travel baseball back then. It was a Little League, and you played 3 months a year. And then in the wintertime, it was indoor sports because it rained all the time. So it was basketball, and then some kids played football. But here in San Diego, dude, the weather is so nice year round that kids play baseball their entire life. It's wild.
Yeah. That's an old Lewis Black joke. He's like, you know who has the easiest job in the world is the weatherman for San Diego. So they just say, what's the weather going to be like this week, Bill? And he just says, nice. Back to you, Tom.
Dude, speaking of Lewis Black, my wife and I just saw him in Escondido a couple months ago, and it was the second time I've seen him live. That dude is so great. I love him.
Wow. I used to follow him really intensely, like about.
Well, he's a New York guy too, right?
And 15. No, he's from Maryland.
Oh, that's right. But did he?
He's from right outside DC.
Oh, gotcha. I thought he was a New Yorker. Maybe he lived there. But yeah, he's
well,
still
I mean, all
hilarious.
Comedians end up in the city at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, it's because like baseball seems like be a big theme of your channel. You must be like the last baseball fan on earth, because like, you know, I was a baseball fan as a kid, and then I touched a boob and I moved on, you know?
Well, dude, my whole life, like I thought I was going to be a baseball player. Like that was what I, you know, concentrated on. And I was lucky enough to play into college, but I
What
had a hard time.
position?
I was a catcher, which
Okay.
was yesterday was National Catchers Day. I had no idea, so it was fun like messing around with that. But it's funny that you say, you know, you touched a boob and then it changed your life, because I had a hard time in high school. Once I started doing that, I was like, shoot, like this is so much better than going to practice or lifting weights. Like, fuck, what do I do?
Yeah.
But yeah, baseball still, I mean, I mean, I've said this
I'm
before too.
actually a little surprised that like kind of that baseball is like hasn't kind of like gone like the way of like boxing, where it's kind of like an archaic sport. I can't believe there's like how many teams are there? It's like what,
There's over
20,
30,
30?
I think there's 32 now. And they were talking, I think they're going to expand and go, gosh, they were saying there's going to be another team, I think.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. But baseball is one of those things I can just sit and talk for hours and hours. I'm a total baseball nerd. So
it's funny because I grew up in upstate New York, so you would think Yankees, but I was never a Yankees fan. I was always a Mets fan. I think it's just because, like, I don't know, maybe it's like my personality or whatever. Because I always kind of like root for the underdog.
Yeah.
And I remember being a kid watching the '86 World Series. So, like in '86, I would have been about 10. I was born in '76. So yeah, so I would have been 10. I remember watching that World Series as a kid, and then you know, the Mets. Well, actually, I think they've been to a couple World Series since then, and I just don't. I don't really follow baseball. I don't really follow sports in general anymore. Like I'll watch like basically I just like watch like the playoffs and the championship game of like any sport, like, you know, football, baseball, basketball. Even I used to be huge into hockey, and I used to go to like when I was in Albany, we had our own minor league hockey team there, and we have one here in Florida too. But I never go to the games.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't know. I just ever since I moved to Florida, I kind of like don't really have the time or the patience for like sports in general anymore. But
we've got a minor league hockey.
I still follow Orlando City, who's our Major League Soccer team here, and like they went pretty far in the playoffs this year. They got to the semifinals, so they came like this close to going to the championship. But they did lose to the eventual, you know, World Cup or, you know, championship team. So I don't feel too bad about that. But yeah.
I don't follow soccer too closely, but speaking of Florida soccer, isn't that Messi was there this year, right? Like that was a huge deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, he went to Miami.
Yeah.
So he's on the Miami team, and they were playing in Orlando, but I think I might get season tickets this year, and then because it's almost like an investment. Because like if you don't go to the games, you can resell them for a profit. You know,
for sure. Yep, absolutely.
Especially in a game that Messi's going to, you probably get like $200-300 a ticket.
Heck yeah, we have. It's funny because I grew up in Northern California, so I'm a Giants fan. But through work, we have season tickets to the Padres. So going to Petco Park is, I mean, that stadium is unreal. And you talk about like a craft beer haven, Petco Park. I mean, if ever you visit San Diego, even if you hate baseball, it's worth going to a game just to see the sheer amount of beer there is wild. And it's everything local you can get. I mean, people are drinking Speedway Stout in the stands like it's nuts, or drinking 12% Stout. Oh yeah, I mean, they have all kinds of stuff. There's like little storefronts you can walk in, and there's coolers that just have bombers of everything local. It's insane. And then around the park, there's rad beer bars. There was a Stone Spot down there. There's Resident Brewing. Like there's so much cool beer stuff downtown San Diego.
Yeah, and how much does a plastic cup of Speedway Stout cost? Like $20?
Beer's there about, well, in where our seats are at, there's a Carl Strauss booth right there. And I don't know, are you a Carl Strauss fan at all? Do you drink very
I think I've had like maybe one of their beers ever. We can't get them out here.
Yeah, there's a beer called Aurora Hopialis. It's one of my favorite San Diego IPAs, and for a large one, I think it's like a 16 or 24 ounce cup. It's like $16.50 for a beer. Dude.
Wow,
it's insane. Yeah,
it's funny because as we're recording this, it's February of 2024, and there's a meme right now going around. I don't know if you've seen on Hayes Boys or one of those. It's a picture of a guy holding up a sign at a baseball game, I think it is, and it says, "Why is beer $14?"
Yeah, it's crazy. My dad always tells me,
I hardly ever go to like. That's one of the downsides of like actually going to see sports in person. Is like you're going to pay an arm and a leg for everything. Like actually, when I go to Orlando City games, they do have like you can get like a 16-ounce. I'm sorry, I got rid of the can, but you can get a 16-ounce Yingling for about $12.
That's actually cheap.
Yeah. I usually like when we go to games, like I usually don't eat or drink anything. It's kind of like being a little kid where it's like if I'm gonna eat or drink anything, I'm gonna eat it all and drink it all before we get there.
Yeah.
Or I'm just gonna take Let's take a 5 milligram gummy.
There you go. It's my man. There you go. But speaking of, like, you were talking about minor league hockey, there's a minor league hockey team in San Diego, and I took the kids to a game a couple years ago, and they play at Sports Arena. And the cool thing about Sports Arena is Modern Times is you can park at Modern Times and walk into Sports Arena. So what we would always do, no matter what we were doing at Sports Arena, we would go to Modern Times first, drink beers, and then go into whatever we're doing. But the minor league hockey game was cool because when we went, it was college night. And since my wife is a college professor, beers were $5. And like on no planet can you do that anywhere, dude. I looked over at one point. This guy across the walkway from me was sitting, and I would say he probably had 9 empty 16-ounce cans of whatever he was drinking. He was getting after it.
Wow.
But it's like, dude, you spend $40 on 9 beers, like that's 3 beers usually. You know, he was getting his money's worth for sure.
Leo wants to be in the show. Say hi, bud. All right, so Leo, it's not the Leo show.
It always is though. Dude, cats are so rad. I'm allergic to them, so I don't have cats. I got a dog.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, my dog's name is Nelson, after my favorite
dog. What kind of dog is
it? He was a rescue. He's part poodle something. We don't even really know.
Small dog?
Yeah, he's a little dog. He weighs like I think 13 or 14 pounds. But my wife has a friend in our neighborhood that does like pet rescue. So she gets all these pregnant dogs, and then they have puppies, and she finds homes for them. But he's awesome. Like he honestly looks like a doodle of some sort. Those dogs that are like $5,000 if you want to buy one from a puppy mill. Mm-hmm. And everyone's always like, dude, what'd you pay for him? I'm like, I paid $150 for him. He's awesome. And he's been the best. Dude, he's been the best dog ever.
Leo and his brother Logan I got when COVID first started. All right.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'm on an arcade forum, and there's a whole thread called Corona Kittens. And during COVID, everyone was buying cats, and there's it's cool. There's all these pictures of all these people who got cats during that time.
Speaking of arcade, we can see the arcade behind you. That's your garage or basement?
Yeah. So it's my garage. So being in California. Well, see,
on the street.
Yeah, no, thankfully for me here in Southern California, like weather is not an issue. So we park our cars in the driveway. But we're not blessed here in California with basements. So when I first got into this hobby, I was like, what can I do, like, as far as finding a space for these games that I want? And I started out, my wife and we lived in a little condo. So it's the only time I've ever seen it. There was a garage under our condo, but it was like a long ways garage. Like you could park 2 cars in it, but one behind another. Right. And it never made sense to us to park cars in there, because we're like, what if one person has to go to work before the other person? Like it never made sense. So I'm like, why don't we turn this garage into like somewhere we can hang out? Because we lived in like a little 800 square foot condo. So I started, my dad bought an arcade game on eBay, and he was like, hey, come over, I want to show you something. And I showed up, I'm like, how the hell did you buy this? And he was like, it was on eBay. And so I made it my mission in life. I went home that weekend, and I was like, I need to find an NBA Jam, which is actually, it's funny. It's right there.
What year was this?
This was in 2003 when he bought that, and I realized you could buy games. And so I went home, and I was like, I got to find one. And I ended up buying a game on eBay, and it showed up and it didn't work. And I was like, dude, I like messaged the guy. I'm like, you said this thing worked. You sent me pictures. And when I got it, it didn't work. And so I did what everyone did back then. I Googled, like, how do I fix my arcade machine? Yeah. And so I found this forum and figured out how to fix it. But I was looking at all these threads, and I'm like, dude, these guys have basements in their house that are full of arcade games. This is insane. And I was like, how do I do that? Like, I don't have space in my house for that. And I'm like, I'm going to buy a house that has a big garage and turn it into a game room. And that's what I've been through 3 or 4 different places that I lived, but we finally bought our forever house 10 years ago. And I was like, dude, the garage out here, it's 680 square feet. Like, it's a big space.
Wow.
So we turned it into, I just had the games out here for a while. And then at the end of 2019, I finally was like, we need to do something to where this is livable. And so that's when I put the TVs out here and put the sofa tables and the bar kind of a setup. And then it actually worked out well, because then COVID happened and then nobody was doing anything. I'm like, dude, I just set up a fucking bar with arcade games, and like, I can't go anywhere.
I'm just all the time.
Yeah, we would just hang out and play video games all day.
I know, awesome. Like as I was a total video game nerd as a kid, and like I've always had like kind of a dream of like having like a house or garage like yours. Mm-hmm. But it was also like if I ever actually had that happen where I had that many arcade games in my house, like I'd have to be like the most personable person ever. Like I'd just constantly be making friends, be like, come over to my house
Right. Yeah.
and play games, because it's kind of like, why do I have these? They're just taking up space. And I was watching one of your videos. I think it's like the most popular video on your channel is like a tour of your garage.
Mhm.
And you know, you're saying like, you know, you paid a couple $100 for this one, a couple hundred, like, and it's funny because like, you know, $200, $300, $400 sounds like a lot, but you figure like, you know, that's only like in the long run, that's only like a day or two worth of pay.
Right.
And it's like it's gonna last theoretically forever as long as you know you keep it up,
Of
keep
course.
you know, unless it gets storm damage or something like that. But you know, so um and it's funny because like I check Craigslist and Facebook and stuff like that for home arcade, because I've
Mhm.
seen people who have like you can basically just buy like a all-in-one, like a programmable system where like you can put like 10,000
Uh-huh.
different games on it, you know? Like that's
Mhm.
my I have the Super Nintendo mini that came out, you know, about what 10 years ago or whatever.
Mhm.
Like you can hack those and you can basically put unlimited games on it as long as depending on your flash drive. Like mine has like every Super Nintendo, every Nintendo, Famicom, Super Famicom, bunch of arcade games, all the Sega games.
Yeah.
Um, basically anything that was like cartridge based, because like the CD games, they're like such huge files. Like you'd have to have like a 1 terabyte flash drive for that. Maybe you
Right.
still can, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice for me because like I've really been playing a lot of Donkey Kong lately, the
Mhm.
original arcade games. I'm watching a lot of YouTube videos like and how to play it.
Yeah.
Um, there's this place here in Oviedo. It's called Arcade Monsters, and it's like an 80s style arcade. And it's like it's kind of like you kind of like Dave and Buster's, but
Mhm.
like way smaller. And like you pay like a admission fee to like get in, and then like they give you like a wristband. Like all the games are free play, so all you have to do is
Right.
just hit start. You don't have to put a quarter in or anything.
Yeah, that's
And then
awesome.
like they have a bar and a full restaurant there too. And yeah, me and Christina, we went there for New Year's Eve, and like it's like I haven't been to one of those places in a long time. It's like
Yeah.
so loud and
It's
like
very
just
nostalgic, right?
it is, but it's also mostly like a lot of like young people running around, you know.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And it's just like so loud. I'm like, you know, I'd rather just sit on the couch and play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
I don't know. Do you
bummer.
ever get that um do you keep those games turned on and plugged in all the time, or do you just turn them on when you're gonna film something?
Yeah, no, so I mean, they're always plugged in, but they're on little power strips to where I can turn on and off whatever I want to play, which is cool.
Mhm.
That's what everyone. I get so many questions like, "Oh my gosh, isn't your energy bill so expensive?" I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
no, these things are off whenever."
Mhm.
And even then, I'm like, I think the most maybe these games pull like 2 amps at a time. Like it's not doing anything crazy as far as like
Mhm.
energy. I mean, they're archaic and they're from the 80s, but yeah, they're not doing
Yeah.
anything crazy like that. But one of the like the blessings of when I first bought that arcade game that showed up that didn't work, and I found that forum, I realized that most of the people in this hobby were buying broken games for cheap and fixing them
Mhm.
because they're really not complicated to work on. I mean, if you can follow a simple flow chart and look at a circuit board,
Mhm.
you can usually figure. A lot of it is just power supplies and monitors. Like they're not crazy complicated. I mean, there's times where there's stuff where I can't figure out, and I have buddies who help me fix them. But
You know how to
uh,
solder?
yeah, I'm a solder
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, there's
I
a
mean, I never did that until I got into this hobby, though. I was never somebody who worked with electronics.
do you ever see this channel? He's called the 8-bit guy, and he doesn't make as much content as he used to, but he would get like old like VIC-20s and Commodore 64s, and like they'd be like covered in gunk and oil and all that stuff, and he would actually like, you know, pull out, you know, circuit cards and,
Hmm.
you know, clean them off and put them back in. And like there's entire channels showing that, like where they show like some rusty piece of metal from like the 1800s, and all they do
Hmm.
is like they put it like in a bath like of where they actually put a battery on. Like, have you seen that where it's like
Yeah,
it actually pulls the rust off through electrodes or whatever?
yeah, no, it's
I
awesome.
forget what it's called, but
Yeah, so I started figuring out I could buy these broken for cheap and fix them. And so, everyone always is like, man, isn't it expensive to be in that hobby? These days it sucks because over the last 10 years, there's been this crazy boom, like you said, of these barcades. and all these dudes took out these crazy loans to open these establishments, and they were paying whatever people wanted to buy these games. So then, however long their business lasted, when they were done, they were trying to sell them for the same thing. So now, I mean, gone are the days of getting, $50, $100, $150 games. Everyone wants, $2,000-$3,000 for these, because that's what they paid, when these dudes were. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer.
For the cabinets, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I guess if they're vintage and they're in good shape,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you follow like cartridge stuff. I mean, dude, there's NES cartridges that go for $10, $15, $20,000. It's insane.
Yeah, like stadium events.
Yeah, yes, it's crazy. So
speaking of which, there's this channel that I follow. His name's he goes by Big Ol' Words. Like, he does mostly videos about Nintendo NES games, and like he used to live stream every Thursday night, and like it's like $5 or $10 a month for his Patreon. And if you become a Patreon, like he'll draw a picture for you. I don't know if you can see this over here. It says Chad's Beer Reviews.
Oh yeah,
in the corner.
That's
I don't know if you can see this, but it's actually the guy from Tapper.
I have a Tapper. That's super cool.
Yeah, and that's hand drawn.
Yeah, so that's right.
Shout out to James for that. But
speaking of Tapper, do you remember playing Tapper when you were a kid?
Yeah, it's funny because wasn't there like a root beer version or something?
Yes. Tapper was one of those games that I don't remember in the arcade, and then once I started doing the beer stuff, I saw Tapper, and I'm like, I have to have one of these, and I have one, it's just such a cool thing to have out here theme wise, for being a beer thing. It's just funny because it's all Budweiser, but it's a very cool cabinet, and it's a super fun game to play.
Yeah, I have that game on my hacked SNES Mini, and I actually got pretty good at it for a while.
Yeah, so there was.
Yeah, it's all Budweiser.
Yeah,
they haven't really changed their branding or their colors or anything.
Nope. Yeah, Bally made Tapper, and then Root Beer Tapper, and then I don't know if you ever played Timber. That was part of like one of the spin-offs of Tapper. Had the same sprites with the same guys. Timber was a fun game.
Timber?
You'll have to see if you can find that one. You could play that name if you want.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually haven't played Tapper in the arcade in a long. I think Arcade Monsters used to have it, but last time I was there, they didn't have it. But playing it on the SNES Mini with the control pad, it's not quite the same thing, because like I know the actual arcade cabinet has like a pull.
You're pulling taps. Yep.
Yeah.
See, that's the one thing that I will say. Like you were talking about the SNES thing that you hacked. We have the same thing, but there's just something to be said about playing these games with these controllers. Like I have a Paperboy arcade game, and I don't know if you ever played Paperboy. Like I used to play it on the NES all the time. But once I got the arcade version, and it's the actual like bike handles, and you're riding a bike, it's awesome, and you can't mimic that.
They have that at Arcade Monster. I was trying to play that on New Year's Eve, and it was like hard as hell. I'm like trying to finesse the controls. I was actually pretty good at the Nintendo version.
The Paperboy thing's tough on the arcade version because there's these steering pots that Atari made, and if they're not, I mean, they've remade them since, and you can replace them. I had to replace the steering pots on mine. If not, that controller's so wonky, it's tough.
Yeah, if you have it in your house and you can play it unlimited, like how long does it take to actually finesse the controls? I mean,
I rebuild that controller, so every time I turn it on, it's perfect. It's great. Yeah, and it's funny. Like I went through a thing where they're used to, I mean, I think they're still around. Twin Galaxies, they would like do high score submissions. I don't know. Did you ever follow any of that?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they do like all the world records and everything.
Yeah, there was a time where I had the world record on Paperboy on Easy Street for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a Paperboy.
Yeah, that's insane. Like those old arcade games and stuff. They have like kill screens and like.
Yep. Like, well, I don't know. Did you just see that the Tetris kill screen was reached on the NES?
Yeah, well, I saw. Yeah, I didn't watch the video, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well, as someone, I grew up, Tetris on the NES is my favorite version. There's a couple different versions. Like I had the arcade version out here, and I'm saying it was an Atari one, and it wasn't the same. But seeing someone actually kill that game, it's just, I mean, the inner video game nerd of me was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. I used to love going to Chuck E. Cheese like in the early 80s.
Yep. I was going to ask you if they had Chuck E. Cheese out there, because part of, I mean, how I got into this hobby, when I started buying arcade games, I was living in the South Bay area, and a lot of these companies started there. So there was all kinds of like Craigslist ads you would see where people were like, we just bought a warehouse and we moved in, and there's arcade games in here that don't work. Who wants them? Or my uncle passed away and we went to his house and he had these arcade games, and it was like these former Atari employees or Namco employees that had like these games. They were everywhere in the Bay Area. But that's where like Showbiz Pizza started. Nolan Bushnell started that, and it was in Milpitas, I think. So growing up, you know, I was born in San Jose. We used to go to Chuck E. Cheese, and then there was like Bullwinkle's, and we used to play arcade games all the time. So I was wondering if Chuck E. Cheese was on the East Coast back then.
Yeah, I remember everything. Did you ever read this book? The Ultimate History of Video Games.
Yes, I have that.
Yeah. There's a part 2 to it. Like this one basically goes up to like 2002 or something like that. But
yeah, no, it's a fun book.
That's actually when it's kind of when I tapped out on video games. I remember like when PlayStation and all those came around. Like never a huge fan. Like, cause like I was in the Navy for 10 years. People brought their PlayStation 2 and Xbox, the original Xbox, and then Xbox 360.
Yeah.
And like everybody, they're all just like first person shooter games or like GTA and stuff like that. I'm like, this is kind of boring. I kind of like super, like I used to bring my actual, I like one of those, the top loader Nintendos.
I always wanted one of those.
Bring cartridges with me like on the ship, but
that's super cool.
Yeah. Anyway, we got like way off topic because like you know, this is supposed to be like a beer podcast.
That's how podcasts go.
Yeah. What inspired you, or like what was the decision to make a YouTube channel and like start? Because like I think you first started doing like your arcade stuff, then you kind of started doing beer stuff.
Yeah. So not to get back off topic, but I used to do an arcade podcast, and we would do our podcast live once a week. It was on Tuesday nights, and there was an IRC, and an IRC is basically like a live chat room. And one of our like segments during our show every week was, "What are you drinking?" And it was me and 2 other buddies who did the podcast. And one of my buddies wasn't really a beer drinker. We always made like busted balls with him. Like he was always like the low carb guy who was never eating carbs, but he never lost weight, like whatever. So he was always like the Jack and Coke guy or whatever he was drinking. But my other buddy in the Midwest was a beer drinker, and it was always like macro lagers. But I started being like, I was the dude in San Diego who was drinking like fun craft beer. And the IRC, when I would start saying what I was drinking, people would be like, "Oh, I've heard of that. Have you ever had this? Have you ever had this? Have you ever had this?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't. Like, do I need to seek these beers out?" So I started going, I think I want to say I went on YouTube one night and I was like, I think I searched like how to trade beer or something weird. And I think one of your videos of like how to ship beer or pack beer.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You did a video of that, right?
Yeah, twice actually. It's probably, if you go on my channel, I think it's like the #1 or #2 most viewed video of all time.
Yeah. So once I realized like I could ship, because in my mind I was like, you're not supposed to ship alcohol. This is illegal. But then I'm like, nobody cares if you don't say anything. I figured out.
I always tell them it was those Christmas snow globes. You know,
yeah.
Shake it.
Yeah.
Like I could say it's glass and it's liquid.
Right. That's what I always said, is spaghetti sauce. But then once I realized that you could trade beer, we would do our podcast and people would tell me about beers I should be trying to get. And my one buddy who I did the podcast was with, he was like, "Dude, if you're going to drink these beers, you should like drink them on YouTube. And then people will probably start watching and then saying like, 'Hey, I've never had that. Do you want to trade?'" So I started doing a YouTube channel essentially to trade beer. And it ended up working, because on Tuesday nights when I would do my podcast, I'd be like, "Hey, I uploaded a couple videos. If anybody's interested in this beer, like let me know." And then, you know, dudes were like, "Have you ever had Founders? Have you ever had Bells?" I'm like, "I've never heard of any of those," because I'm in California. We didn't get any of that stuff. And so, yeah, that was the inspiration for that, was just to trade beer. Because if you look, I think my YouTube channel, like the first like 12 or 16 videos, it was all arcade stuff, because that's what it was. We had an arcade podcast. We were doing arcade stuff. Yeah. The one guy who I did the podcast with, he was a bigger arcade channel. He had like 50,000 subscribers, I think, and was getting, his channel was huge for a while. He since has stopped doing it. But I think having his audience too helped, because you realize really quickly that a lot of people who play video games also drink beer.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of how it started. I was like, if I'm going to trade, beer, maybe I can put myself out there. Cause then I started watching beer reviews, and I'm weird about like social media. Like the most fun things for me about when people post stuff is I go right to comments, because I think it's hilarious. Comment sections just get out of control. So I would start watching beer reviews, and I would go to the comments, and I would realize people were watching going, "Oh, I want this beer. How do I get in touch with you to trade?" I'm like, "Oh, this is the way I can trade beer." So that's the only reason why I did it.
Yeah, it's fine. I haven't done a beer trade in a long time. I don't think I've done one since I moved to Florida. Like most of my beer, like everything in this fridge is like from Tavor or beerdrop.com. Cause like
yeah,
the only like there's this liquor store like about 2 blocks from where I live, and I was called the beer museum because most of the actual bottles and cans in there are like from 2 or 3 years ago, sometimes older. I've seen stuff in there where it was like bottled in like 2013, 2016. And I'll ask the clerk, I'm like, "Can you discount this?" And they'll like knock
yeah,
like 10% off. I'm like, "No, I want to pay like a buck for it." Like it's really,
right.
I know I can already tell it's not that. They always try to like tell you, "Oh no, beer's like wine; it gets better with age." I'm like, "No,
Oh
it
yeah,
doesn't."
you're like, no, not this style.
Yeah, don't try to
Well,
pull that on me.
yeah,
You
well,
know?
the hard thing about beer trading for me was once people realized I was in California, they were like, "Dude, I need Pliny," and I'm like, "You have
Yeah.
to realize everywhere here," and this was back in 2014, it was one bottle per person. And it's funny, I just I shot a review. I revisited Pliny, so it'll upload next week. But
How
I was
easy is that to come by?
well, nowadays, I mean, I can in California, you can buy it online and they'll ship it to you, so you can buy cases
Oh,
of it.
really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
then most stores now they all buy it online and then just resell it. But back then, everywhere you went, it was one per person. So these dudes were like, "Well, I'll get you 2 4 packs of Heady Topper, but I need 6 bottles of Pliny." I'm like, "I can't get 6 bottles of Pliny. I can't do it."
Yeah.
So after a while, I was like, "Dude, I can't. I couldn't do beer trades anymore because." And then once Monkish blew up, they were like, "Hey, I need Monkish." I'm like, "I live 2.5 hours from Monkish. I'm not fucking with LA traffic to
Yeah.
to get a 4 pack and then try and trade with you." So I was like, I got to stop doing
But
this.
like if you go to your local beer store, do they have Pliny there?
So grocery stores have Pliny here now, which
Oh,
is
really?
what a time
Wow.
to be alive. Yeah. So if you ever want
Is it
Pliny,
still in
I'll
those
grab some for you.
16-ounce bowling
It
pin
is.
bottles?
Yep.
Or do they
Which
can it?
well, so they've been the last 2 times they did Pliny for president, they canned it. So I'm like, why aren't you just canning these beers? Like, dude, I don't know how you feel. Like, obviously, of course, beer tastes better. Not better. It tastes good out of a bottle. But
Mhm.
having to put big 16-ounce bottles in your fridge, like it takes up space. It sucks to try and get rid of. I hate glass bottles these days. So I'm like, dude, just can the beer. Who cares? Like we've
Yeah.
learned over the last 10 years with all these guys that are canning craft beer now that beer out of a can is fine. It tastes great. So just
Yeah.
like let's get rid of the bottles. Shipping it sucks. It's just terrible.
Even Chimay has started putting some of their beers in 12-ounce cans.
Yeah, let's just
Or I
go
think
to
that well, I
cans.
think they're 330 mil, it's slightly smaller, but yeah, it's nice seeing the Belgians. Like actually right here I have this is a
There you
500
go.
mil can of Delirium Red.
And dude, look how rad that packaging is, by the way. That looks great.
Yeah. We
I,
had this
I
on tap last night, and Christina might come over tonight and we'll review it out of the can to see how it tastes compared.
yeah. I always thought too.
That's
I
not,
mean,
not like Tavor and Beer Drop. They're almost all cans except for like if it's something like really special, like this is like a wild ale.
oh
I don't
wow.
know if you've heard of this brewery, the Ale Apothecary. I think they're out of Oregon. Yeah,
Nuh-uh.
Bend, Oregon. There's only like 4.6 ABV, but this bottle still cost me like $15 because it's a wild ale.
Look at that still
Yeah, it's caged
cork
in
and
cork.
cage. Yep.
Yeah.
Gosh, I hate that too. Dude, I used to
I was like
struggle.
those Russian River, they're like Asian beers, like
Mhm.
supplication, consecration, all that.
They're all still like that.
The wild beers, the sour beers.
I hate doing that, dude, because every time I do a beer review and try and open it on camera, I struggle with it. I'm just like, "Ah, I hate it."
It was funny back in the early days of Chad's in Albany. Like I used to always like open the cage and like let it kind of sit there and see if the cork would just
Yeah,
pop
would come
out.
out. That's
Yeah. It
happened to
only
me
did that like
before.
once or twice. That's always fun to like see the pop, but like anytime I open a beer with cage and cork, I always open it over the sink just in
Yeah.
case.
Well, that was one of the funny, like, kind of shit talking things in San Diego. Like, Lost Abbey would always cork and cage their wild ales, but they always had carb issues. So, like, every
Mhm.
time you would go to pop one, there would be no pop. And I'm like, oh, that's the Lost Abbey carbonation right there.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around where you
No,
open it just gushes.
dude, all of their cork and cage wild ales were always undercarbed. It was crazy, but they were so good.
Man, drinking that arrogant bastard, like I don't usually drink during the day anymore, and it's like so weird to like drink when the sun's still out.
You know what's
Yeah,
crazy
it's
is,
like still lunchtime, like where you are, right?
yeah, it's 1:30.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I was having beers last night with my wife, and I opened that at noon and started drinking. I'm like, wow, I'm buzzed again.
Hmm.
But I was like, oh, I'm gonna go palate cleanse and go little hams.
Yeah, you said you get up at like 3:30 a.m. every day.
Yeah. So with my work schedule, I have to be at work I don't have to, but I get to work at 6.
Hmm.
So I get up early to do, to work out. That's the only time I have, because after work, with the kids schedule, I just don't have time to do it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm up at 3:30. Dude, I'm such an
Hmm.
old guy. I go to bed at 8. Like, it's whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I used to be like that, like when I lived in New York and I had a day job because I would get up like 5 or 6 and work out before work.
Yeah.
Um, it's nice now because like I set my own schedule. I say I get up at 8 and like Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I have my own, I guess a gym, but I mean I have like med balls. I have those the Bowflex adjustable weights where you just dial it to
Yeah.
whatever weight you want.
I
I
love
have a
those. I have
bench
them.
and I have my own pull-up bar. It took me for I don't know why it took me forever, but I finally got one. You just drill it into the door frame,
Yep.
so I can do pull-ups,
It's the
chin-ups,
best.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really need a lot of space. I used to run, and like I guess I blew out my hip because like now I have like arthritis in my hip, and like
Oh, dude, that
just
sucks.
from walking around, like my
Yeah.
my left hip is like constantly in pain. I'm taking like a leave like twice a day.
Bro, just eat the gummies, dude. Fuck taking medicine.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about gummies is that it just kind of like takes your mind up. It doesn't actually make it hurt less because like I remember when COVID hit. And actually, I don't think I got like I think I got like one of the later strains of COVID where it wasn't as bad, where it was kind of just like having the flu or a cold or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I remember just like, I would just like wake up and I was still sick. So I would just like be popping gummies all day. Like, well, if I'm going to be sick, you know,
Yeah.
because it just takes your mind off. Like you're still, like you're like so like high and like, and like,
Yeah.
oh, this hurts like hell, you know?
See, the
It's
ones
like
we
this,
get
this music sounds so good, but
right. The ones we get here, I mean, you can talk to whoever you want to talk to, and they'll give you stuff, because old baseball injury, my shoulder is so bad.
Mhm.
And it got to the point, I mean, in high school, I was eating like, I think 2 or 3 800 milligram Motrins every day before practice.
Mhm.
And as I got older, it just crushed my stomach. Like, I had such bad stomach and intestine issues from taking Motrin my whole life playing baseball. And
Yeah.
these days, like when I have all that shoulder pain, like I just don't want to take that stuff because it doesn't make me feel good. So, I mean,
Yeah.
THC is a great thing. That is for
Yeah,
sure.
I have a CBD muscle rub that really helps too.
Yeah,
Like
that's cool.
CBD is great. It's like this miracle drug, like that, like you couldn't even get until a few years ago. You know.
Yeah. No, dude, there's a bunch of stores here. You can go and get sparkling CBD water. It's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because like anything CBD or THC related is like essentially legal everywhere because of like we don't like have like recreational THC in Florida. We have medicinal,
I'm
and
saying
my
you got to
friend
have a card, right?
yeah, but
Yeah.
like this stuff I just get online through infinitecbd.com,
They just ship
and
it to you.
yeah, I don't need a prescription or
Oh
anything.
wait, so the gummies that you have, those are just CBD gummies. Those aren't THC gummies.
No, those are THC. I mean, you can
Oh,
also
okay.
get CBD, but I can also
Yeah.
get CBD locally. Like a lot of
Gotcha.
like every gas station sells CBD and kratom now,
Right. Yeah.
I think that's why. And it's funny we should get bringing this back to beer.
Mhm.
Is if you've been paying attention to the news, like it's not just craft beer, but beer, the entire beer market has been coming. Like they said, 2023 was like the worst year for beer in like a quarter century or something like that. And I think a lot of that, I think most of that has to do with like the rise of hard seltzers and the legalization of like THC. Because it's kind of like
Yeah.
if you can get THC legally, then you don't really need like because it kind of just goes to show of how many people were drinking beer just to get drunk or to get buzzed. Whereas like you and I are drinking it because we legit love the taste.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like, have you noticed? I mean, maybe because you're in San Diego, I mean, you're in like the craft beer mecca of America there. I don't know. Like, have you noticed anything like different the last couple of years? But like any breweries closed around there or
No, I
what's it
think
been
it
like?
kind of out here in California. Like, I think I mean, we've we've been waiting so long for it to kind of go hand in hand together.
Mhm.
And I mean, here now, recreational, it's all legal, which I think is great, because when you think about alcohol and how, I mean, just listen, we love beer, right? But how
Mhm.
bad alcohol is for our bodies, it's terrible. So if there's people, if there's people who are drinking to try and relieve pain, if there's that option, like, just let them have that. It's a plant. Like, who cares? It's like, it makes no sense to me to think like I have to drink, whether it's hard alcohol, beer, whatever it is. Every night when I get home, I have to drink to make myself feel better. Like, okay, I'll feel better. My
Mm,
pain might go away, but I'm just killing myself that way. If people can
yeah,
come home and eat gummies, like they're not doing anything bad, like physically to their bodies.
yeah.
So I think out here, I mean, it kind of, like I said, it goes hand in hand. Like dudes drink beer and they'll smoke pot, and it's just, it's kind of both. So
And
there's plenty.
like if I remember from like my middle school health class correctly, I remember like because like alcohol is a depressant.
Right.
I don't know like if THC is considered a depressant because like I don't know like I've never like if I've ever been like really sad, I never like drank to like feel better. Or it's like it's like to me like beer's always been like like the social lubricant as I always say.
Right.
Um, but I mean as far as like the high is concerned, like I like if I'm in a bad mood, like I would definitely take a gummy over drinking
Right.
any
Well,
day.
I feel like alcohol can kind of exasperate whatever emotion you're feeling, right? Like if you're
Mhm.
in a really good mood and you drink, you'll be silly. But if you're upset and you drink, you tend to get more
Yeah,
upset. If you're depressed and you drink, you
angry
go into
drunk.
this
Yeah,
crazy spiral of like this wild depression. But dude, I mean, I've never met or known anybody. I know plenty of people who they completely change when they drink. I don't know anybody who completely changes when they use THC. They just
and
mellow out.
yeah,
So the fact
I
that
just
it's still kind of taboo and like I just it's crazy to me because I mean there's all these people
yeah,
who are like, oh, it shouldn't be legal, but meanwhile I can go to a bar and a bartender will serve me as much as I want and I can get in my car and drive home if I so
yeah,
choose to do that, but I can't
yeah,
like smoke a joint at my house. Like, what are we doing?
yeah.
It
Well, I
doesn't make
can't
sense.
smoke anything. Like I get like once a year, if that. Like I smoke like a cigar, and I have like a sore throat for like a week.
Yeah, yeah.
So like
Well,
I've never been able to like smoke anything or vape anything.
I was gonna
So like
say,
the
have
fact
you
that I
ever
have them in
tried?
gummies now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you ever tried using like vape pens as far as THC goes?
No, I've only just
Yeah.
used gummies. Like because Christina, she actually has a medical card here in Florida, and so she
Mhm.
does that like the vapes a lot, and she said it hits you a lot quicker
Right.
when you're actually smoking it. 'Cause, like with a gummy, you can take it and it'll be like an hour or two before you actually start to feel it.
And you know what's wild about like gummies are wildly popular out here, and people are like, "Oh, I've
Mhm.
never, used THC before. Like, I'm gonna start with gummies." I'm like, "Dude, edibles are crazy. Like, are you sure that's what
Yeah.
you want to start with?" Because I mean, it metabolizes different in your body, so it has completely different effects. I mean, I don't know. Have you had any of like the speak? I know you hate like hard seltzers. Have you had any THC seltzers?
No, what we have, there's a, like a head shop or whatever, not too
Hmm.
far from here, and you can get like a fruit punch or lemonade that has like 30 milligrams in it, and I think they have them up
Yeah.
to like 90 milligrams.
I mean, dude, if
I
you're
took,
ready to
I like
see
that.
Jesus, you could drink that whole
Yeah.
thing.
Actually, I think on Super Bowl Sunday, me and Christina said we'll probably do another one of those 30 milligram drinks because like
Like,
when I drink it, it tastes
wait? Are you gonna
exactly like.
split it?
No, it's like a 12-ounce, 10 or 12-ounce, little plastic bottle, and like it tastes exactly like whatever it says, like lemonade, fruit punch,
I'm just
iced
saying, dude,
tea.
30 milligrams is no
You can't
joke. Good for
taste
you.
the. Yeah, I mean, but it lasts like forever too.
Oh,
Like you
dude,
take
yeah,
it at like noon, you'll still be feeling it when you go to bed.
of course.
You know?
Well, that I mean, that's the good thing about people, like the fact that this is legal now, and you can know what you're doing as far as dosage goes. I mean, I've told a bunch of people this story. The first time my first experience ever with edibles, I didn't really know what it did, and we were at one of my friend's house, and his father-in-law had health issues, so his mother-in-law would make cookies for him, and she was
Mhm.
like, "It helps him sleep. It helps him with pain. Just make sure you don't eat these unless you want to." And so we were out like drinking beers at the lake, whatever. And the one night I walked in there and like I opened up the fridge and I saw the plate. I'm like, you know what? Fuck, I'm just gonna take one of these. Who cares? And I ate it. And I didn't realize that you're supposed to wait an hour. So like, I don't know, 30 minutes, 45 minutes goes by. I'm like, did this not work? Like, did I not eat enough? So I went back
Mhm.
out there like within an hour and took another cookie and ate the whole thing. And then, dude,
How many?
probably like 35 minutes later, I was like, what is happening? I was, dude, full blown
Do you
panic.
how many?
I was,
How many milligrams they were?
well, I don't know because she would make her own butter and just made these cookies. I had no clue what I ate. I have no idea, but I was high
Oh,
for a day and a half. Like I went to
they probably
bed,
were like 50 milligrams each or
dude.
something.
I went to bed that night woke up and I'm like, this still like, fuck, what do I do? But I didn't want to tell anybody that I ate them because I essentially stole them out of the fridge. And I just, dude, and I just was sitting there, and finally, like the next night, I finally started like kind of sobering up, and I'm like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
for me,
was
like I
crazy.
pretty much only do that like on the weekends. Like I can't like do it like every night because like I got shit to
Yeah,
do, you know.
of course. Yeah. What's
Yeah,
that? That's the old Cat
whenever
Williams
you're gonna
joke, right? I
commit
got
to
shit to do.
THC, it's like you better clear your schedule.
Right.
Like those 30 milligram drinks I was talking about. It's like you better, and you also have to like have a plan for the day because otherwise, I mean, you can just
Can't
sit and
do
watch
it.
TV all day if you want, but like for me, like it's hard for me to just like sit still like all day. It's actually hard for me to like take a day off actually,
Yeah.
because I don't know if you know, but I'm like a full-time gig worker, so I do mostly like DoorDash, Uber, Lyft,
Oh,
Amazon
okay.
Flex, Instacart, stuff like that. I can work whenever I want, and like so I'm driving a lot. I'm on my feet a lot. I like it's like I get a lot of exercise. I get a lot of steps in on my Fitbit.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Um, burn a lot of calories that way. It's funny. I actually lost a lot of weight because if you watch, it's funny. Actually, speaking of my BeerTube Academy, so like I did that review. I was showing like actually the one I just posted today. I show how I cut. So I did a review of Heady Topper January 1st, 2012. It was like a 8 or 10 minute review, and I just show how I cut it down to a 45-second short for Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff and YouTube Shorts.
Mhm.
And when I shot that particular review, I was probably about 220 pounds. And I remember the Christmas of 2011, like I had a date, and the girl, when I walked in, she saw me. I saw her face drop because
Oh,
like I was
wow.
like way heavier in person than the pictures that she saw online,
Yeah. She didn't even
And
hide
I was
it.
like, okay, that's the January 1st. I'm losing weight, and
Mhm.
like I've committed to it because like that was January 1st, 2012, and here we are, 12 years later, and like I'm actually thinner now, in better shape now than I was when I was actually in active duty Navy. Like when I
Yeah.
was in my 20s and 30s, because like I was always like probably about 180 to 190 back then, and
How tall are you?
5'10.5", 5'11".
Okay.
I would just
Okay.
round up and say 5'11".
Yeah.
Um, and like you don't eat like the healthiest food like on the ship. I mean, it's packed full of preservatives and all that. Very
Mhm.
salty,
Yeah.
and everybody just buys a lot of junk food because like the food on the mess decks is like so bad. So you end up just like eating candy or whatever just to like
Right.
you're starving. I ate a lot of beef jerky back then, and yeah, when I got out of the Navy, because then I was in reserve after I got out of active duty, and like I was like super fat back then. So
Yeah.
I was just eating like fast food, like three meals a day,
Right.
because I
Yeah.
hated cooking. I still hate cooking, but yeah. And so like when 2012 hit, that's when I committed to like losing weight and exercising, and like I basically kept to it. And like I used to run a lot back then. It was a lot easier in New York, especially
Yeah.
in the cooler months.
Oh, yeah. Where you live
And
in the summertime, it's gnarly, isn't it?
oh yeah, last year, not or 2 summers ago, summer of 2022, I was actually running outside when it
Oh,
was still 80, 90, 100 degrees out. But like there's this place only a few blocks from where I live where it's kind of like a canopy street because like the trees are so tall, it's like in perpetual shade.
mhm.
And I could just, if I run with my shirt off, it was
Yeah.
tolerable.
Yeah. That's the spot to
And
go.
yeah, and then Halloween of 2022, I got food poisoning for like 2 weeks.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, it was salmonella poisoning. You know what it was? It was like I was at the supermarket, like those chicken packs, like they're all
Uh-huh.
slimy.
Yeah.
And like they have like I don't know if they have them at your supermarket, but like here, they have like plastic bags like they would have in produce, and like
Yeah.
because it's meant
You
to
put
like
your
you
meat in
the chick.
there?
Yeah, I remember like licking my fingers and like to like because you can't get the plastic bags open.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember like I probably had like a little bit of chicken juice on me. And I think that's
Oh,
what.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably got salmonella poisoning that way,
Fucking
and I
chicken
probably lost
juice.
like 10 pounds like that, and then I think about 6 months or 9 months later, I had a colonoscopy, and I don't know if you ever had a colonoscopy. Like you have to void everything the night before.
Mhm.
And yeah, I remember at one point I was like down to like probably 160, 161. And I weighed myself yesterday. I was like 165.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm actually able to stay in pretty good shape because I mean I work out 3 days a week, and like even on the days that I don't work out, I still get anywhere from like 10,000 like 15,000 steps in, mostly
Yeah.
because of my line of work, but also like I'll just walk for the fun of it.
Right, of course.
Um, This is one thing I always ask, like any beer tuber who's like not 300 pounds. Like, how are you not 300 pounds?
Yeah. Well, it's, what's crazy is I used to be 300 pounds, and this was
Really?
pre-craft.
Wow.
Yeah, this was pre-craft beer. Yeah, I think it was where I lived. I didn't realize it, but I think I was just going through mental health stuff, and I think I was eating to make myself feel better. I had a gnarly commute. I was commuting 65 miles each way every day. I kind of moved out in the middle of nowhere because my wife got a job teaching, so we decided to move away from where we're at to where she was going to teach, so that she didn't have to commute. So I was out in the middle of nowhere. I didn't really know anybody, and I think I just was kind of going through some shit, and I was just eating way too much. And then, on the weekends, you have beers, and then you end up drinking too much, and then you wake up in the morning, you don't feel well. So what do? You eat shitty food to try and feel better. And I just got in this crazy like cycle that I couldn't get out of. And one of my best friends got married, and I remember we were in Paso Robles that weekend at his wedding. And we took pictures, and then I think like 2 weeks later, this was still like you're taking pictures on like disposable cameras. We got the pictures back, and I looked at myself, and I'm like, whoa. But even when I saw myself, and I was like, whoa, I didn't do anything about it. And then once I moved back to San Diego in 2011, one of my buddies was like, I'm going to start doing it. Was P90X. He was like, I'm going to do this thing called P90X. Do you want to do it with me? And I'm like, sure. And then that's when there was an app called Lose It. And he was like, hey, let's get on this app and we'll log all of our food. So we had like this group, and then we brought like 2 other friends in, and we decided to do like, we're going to change our lives. Like everyone always does like the 30-day challenge or whatever. And then like you do this cool thing for 30 days, but then it doesn't stick. And we decided we're not going to do a challenge. We're going to actually like change our habits and see if we can figure this out. Yeah. So once I like, the thing that changed my life, honestly, is I bought a food scale. And once you realize what you're eating, you like a lot of times you don't realize how much you're eating as far as like caloric goes. And once I started weighing my food, I'm like, wait a second, this is barely anything. And this is like 600 calories. I was eating 3 times that in one meal.
That's very similar to me, because like I was using MyFitnessPal, where you're actually logging all the calories and stuff. And that's when you actually see the numbers.
It's crazy.
And you can also kind of log, and this is before Fitbits, so like you had to kind of guess on how many calories you burned, Yep. I would just write in like, went to the gym for an hour, and it would just kind of guess on your calories and all that.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, once I love the Fitbit, because like you can actually, I mean, these things aren't 100% accurate, but I mean, they're fairly close.
Yeah.
So it's like once you see the calories in versus calories out.
Right. Well, and tying this back to like beer, I didn't realize like when you drink craft beer, they don't have nutrition facts like macro loggers do. And once I think I saw it online. It was like this whole formula to figure out the calories in craft beer. And I'm like, dude, double IPA is my favorite beer. And I'm like, a 16-ounce can of double IPA is like having a meal. And I'm drinking like five of these after dinner on a weekend. I'm like, well, no wonder I'm fucking 300 pounds.
Yeah. I saw a form. I think it was on Twitter. Probably this is a long time ago, but I remember it's just to give you a ballpark,
right? Not to get close.
It's a 2.5 times the ABV times the ounces.
Yep.
So like the Arrogant Bastard we just did. So I mean, actually, I'll bring it up.
Do you really want to do that?
Yeah. All right. So 2.5 times 7.2 times 16, 288 calories.
Yeah.
And you had the stovepipe can, so yours was probably.
I had a meal. I hadn't eaten anything up until we started doing this, so that was my breakfast today. But yeah, I mean, once you realize, and then dude, when you're drinking barrel-aged stouts that are like 14-15%, you're like, I think the one night we went through all the brewery beers, like a bottle of, remember when Black Tuesday used to come in like a 750 milliliter format?
Yeah.
It's like 1,100 calories for that bottle of beer.
I would never drink that whole thing myself.
Well, I'm just saying, not that anybody's doing that, but I mean, if you share one of those, I mean, that's 700 calories almost. It's nuts. Like
the strongest beer I have right now, I think this is from Evil Twin. This is Haig or whatever. It's a brawly one. It's like, this is 15%. This is a full 16-ounce can.
Yeah, that beer right there that's a couple.
Just put that with Christina or somebody.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things. Like it's tough. There was a thing on YouTube like a few years back called Frequently Asked Beer Questions. Did you participate in that? Like where everyone was tagging people, but you were only supposed to tag one person. So like
This must
I
have
wanted to
been
tag.
when I was kind of out of the scene.
Yeah. So one of the questions was like, how do you drink beer and stay, healthy? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you're not really being healthy putting alcohol in your body, but it's tough. Like you have to really pay attention to calories in versus calories out, and you have to plan like your meals around the alcohol that you're going to be drinking. Which sounds, I mean, that's when you're getting to the point where like, all right, I'm going to skip lunch today because I know I want to have a couple beers tonight. Like, what are we doing? Like, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny
It's
because
tough.
like this kind of brings back to our earlier conversation about, the difference between alcohol and versus THC. I mean, at least a gummy,
Yeah.
it's going to give you a high that's going to last for a couple hours, and
Right.
it's like
You don't have to
0
worry about
calories.
drinking anything. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Although I will say it does make you want to eat though, because like now my favorite like snack is trail mix.
Mhm.
I've been eating a lot of trail mix the last few years. I mean, it's mostly raisins and peanuts, but you get the almonds in there, cashews,
Yeah.
and the little bit of M&Ms or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, it's like if you're gonna snack on something, I mean, at least eat trail mix.
Try and do that. Yeah, for sure.
You get a
That's the one thing
protein from the nuts and fiber from the raisins.
I always said if I was a bodybuilder dude with THC, I would be a cheat code because I can eat so much food.
Yeah. I always wondered, you have like that, you always have like kind of the stylized facial hair, especially the mustache. I think some of your old videos, you had like the curly thing on the end, like
I
one of those
did.
1920. Like, what's the story behind that? Is that just to
You
be
know,
funny, or is that?
yeah. So I never knew that I could grow a mustache. And then in 2019, I decided to do the Movember thing. Just because I've lost so many family members to cancer, and I was like, I want to do something that actually like is part of I want to like raise money for this, like to try and be proactive, whatever. So I started growing my beard out prior to November of 2019, and it got really like bushy. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to shave the beard part off and keep my mustache and see what it looks like. And I did it, and my wife was like, you actually don't look terrible with a mustache. Like, this is crazy. I mean, her and I have been together for 26 years, and I've never had a mustache before. And she was like, I was always weirded out by mustaches because back in the 80s, I mean, everyone always joked like porn stashes, whatever. So I did the Movember thing in 2019, and then shaved it off, and then the following year did it. And then my little sister had my niece in 2021, 2022. She just turned 2. Anyways, so she was born in September, and November came. I did the mustache thing, and then I realized when she was real little, she recognized me because I had like this funny mustache on my face. And I was at that point like, you'll do anything for attention from your niece. I'm like, if she's going to recognize me, I'm not going to shave it off. So I've kept it for the last 2 years. And now my wife's used to it because I told her, I'm like, do you want me to shave this off? She's like, no, I like it. Like, and all my friends say that too. They're like, it's weird, but it fits you. You don't look creepy or
The
strange.
curls, isn't that called like a handlebar mustache?
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where it got really long and I was doing that, but then my wife was like, dude, like, cause like even giving her a kiss goodbye, like the mustache gets in her face, and she's like, yeah, I don't like that. So I try and keep it
like the old boxer, like
yeah, dude. Yeah, so I try and keep it groomed, but yeah, it's weird. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever have a mustache, and I'm a mustache guy now.
I know,
it's strange.
It's funny. Like this is the first time ever I've had like a close to a like beard in my, like I have these blank spots on my face. Like I'm not a hairy person, obviously, as you can tell. Like even on my face, like I always thought like at least like if I lost the the war on balding on my head, at least like maybe I could get like a beard, but like I think I'm gonna let this grow out for a few months.
Yeah, let it go just to see what happens.
Yeah,
that's what I started doing. Like the first time I ever had real like facial hair was in 2018. I had to go to Ohio for my cousin's wedding, and I realized when we left I didn't pack a razor, and I was like, shoot. And we were in Ohio for like a week, and I didn't shave for a week, and I was like, wow, like I can actually kind of grow a beard. This is weird. And so I kept doing it, and my wife liked it, and she was like, I've never seen you with a beard. Just keep your beard. And then when COVID happened, I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna let my beard grow and let my hair grow. And I think I went like 8 months without cutting my hair or shaving, and I looked like Greg Cook kind of. And I realized I was like, wow, I can actually grow facial hair. I never knew I could because I never tried.
Yeah, it's well, because I joined the Navy when I was 23, and like you can't have any facial hair. Really, you can have a mustache, but I've just been so used to shaving and like having that haircut, and also like when I started to lose my hair, like when I got out, I was like, I'm gonna have to have this damn navy haircut for the
Yeah.
rest of my life because of like the receding hairline and all that, and it's just
Mhm.
it's either that or I didn't start doing this until last summer, and I guess I'm gonna keep
My
it for now. My mom hates
Yeah,
it,
do
but
it. Does she? My brother-in-law's Navy and my old roommate was Navy too. Did you ever get to go anywhere like rad?
yeah, we went to. Well, I mean, obviously, I've been to the Persian Gulf. Been to what's that island country off the coast of Africa?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Seychelles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Were you
Then
were you Did you ever go station like in Yokosuka or Okinawa or anything? Were you ever in Japan?
no, I was only at I was on USS Wasp out of Norfolk, Virginia. So I
Oh,
was there
gotcha.
for like five years or so. Yeah, I know there's a huge base in San Diego where you are. But yes,
Yeah.
I've never been to West Coast or anything Pacific or Japan or anything like that. It's funny, actually,
Gotcha.
they moved my ship to Japan last time I checked.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, which
I
that's
just
kind of a
we
bummer because I always wanted to go back and see it, but can't.
Man, I don't know if you've ever been to Japan before, but we visited because my brother-in-law was stationed in Yokosuka from 2018 to 2021. So we
Mhm.
went to Japan to visit them. I never would have thought to visit Japan. It is legitimately the greatest country in the entire world. It's awesome. And we
Yeah,
actually just went we
I would love to visit there someday. I'm sure it's a
it's
long plane ride though, right?
well for you, yeah, because you're going the other way.
Unless
For
you
us,
overnighted
yeah.
on the West Coast.
What a lot of people do is they'll fly to Hawaii and spend a couple days there just to kind of break up the flight. But yeah, for us
Mhm.
it's 14 hours. But yeah, Yokosuka was super cool. I never would have got to go to Japan if it wasn't for the Navy. So it was pretty cool to go check that country
Cool.
out.
Um, I got like my standard questions here. Usually I ask these towards the beginning, or well, there is no usually right now, but
Yeah.
um, so like, do you have like a criteria or like rubric or like when you're doing beer reviews for your channel? Like, actually, I mean, I think you say you don't really give grades anymore, but like, what's your criteria for when you actually are reviewing beer? Or
So for me, I stopped doing grades just because I remember I was doing these grades and I'm like I would do a grade and be like this beer is a 97, and then the next day I would do a beer, I'm like this beer is a 98, and people would comment like, well, what's the difference between 97 and 98? And I'm like, you're right, I have no idea. Like I don't
yeah,
know, like why am I doing that?
that's
So then I
what
was like,
Darwin does.
right, well, and then he got really like technical where he was like 98 minus 98 plus, and I'm like, holy smokes, like this is what I don't even know what that means. But I was just like, well, instead of doing number grades, like, let's just do would I buy this again, or would I recommend someone spend their money on this? Because a lot of times people are like, do you think I should buy this? And dude, the last thing I want to do is have someone go spend their money on something and then hate it and be like, dude, I asked you if I should buy
Yeah.
this. Like, you
But it's
steered me
also like
wrong.
everybody has different palates and different preferences too, because it's like, what I
Right.
like, you might not like,
No, exactly. I mean, that's the hard part of this whole thing. It's like if you're going to put yourself out there and say, "Oh, this is good, you should drink this," and then someone goes and drinks it and then hates it, they're like, "You fucking
Yeah.
told me I should drink this." So that's my whole criteria nowadays. Is like, would I buy this again? Would I drink this again? Would I share this with people? And
Mhm.
that's just kind of how I do it. Just because, I mean, if you're going to spend your money on something, you want to make sure you enjoy it. And
Yeah.
it's got to the point now, and we were talking about this earlier, where everything. I feel like beer these days, everything is hazy or pastry, and I feel like I'm
Yeah.
such like an
Like
outsider
title
in the beer
sour.
world. Yeah, I'm like I don't want that anymore, and it's my
Yeah.
own fault. I've said this a million times. Like once hazy beers were a thing, and I think you had commented today on my first Treehouse review. Like when I discovered hazy IPA back then in 2015 or whatever that was,
Mhm.
there was nothing like that. And so I was like, I want more of this. This is really cool. I still was drinking West Coast beers, but it's my own fault. Like I was just seeking out hazy beer after hazy beer after hazy beer after hazy beer, and it became the only thing that I was drinking. And finally, I realized with hazy beer, I have really bad allergies, and I think it's a yeast thing. I get really congested when I drink hazy beer. Does that happen to you at all?
I know a lot of people that get heartburn, but
Yeah,
yeah,
heartburn's one of the
it
things.
hasn't happened to me.
Yeah, I get really bad congestion when I drink hazy beer, and I just feel like hazy beer is just really it feels heavy when you drink one after another, like if you're sharing beers
Yeah.
with people. So I kind of got out of the hazy thing, which is kind of it was kind of a bummer for me because there was a point where like breweries were sending me beers to review, which was cool. Like when you start a beer channel, you're like, it would be really fun, like if somebody sent me beer, you know? And then when they send it to you, you're like, this is cool. Like they care about what people say. Like I think it's cool that I mean, I don't know how many breweries are still sending people beer. And this is where I was going with this. So once I got off a hazy beer, I magically stopped hearing from breweries because I mean that's what these dudes are doing. They're like, well, if you're not gonna drink hazy beers, then we're not gonna send you beer anymore.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
Didn't you just did like a whole week of all Treehouse beers? Did they send those to you, or did you get them in a trade?
No, a guy just sent me a message and was like, "Hey, Treehouse released all these new beers, and you haven't drank Treehouse in a while. Can I send some to you to review?" And that's why the one beer that I had that had the off flavors, I had messaged you. I'm like, "Hey, do you think I should upload this? Because I don't want to cause drama. Like, I don't want to do that." But
So
I felt
like
bad because
a rep for the brewery.
no, he's just a dude who lives out in Massachusetts that drinks Treehouse.
Oh, so he's just a fan.
Yeah, just a dude who was like, "Hey, you know, I've watched
Okay, I
the
thought it was like
reviews."
a
No,
at the brewery.
Yeah, no, it had nothing to do with that.
Well,
But when
tell
someone
that dude to send me some.
I'm just saying, when somebody, you know, when somebody sends you something like a box of beers and like, hey, can you please do reviews of these? Like, I wanted to upload all of them, even though one wasn't great. But it wasn't his fault. I don't think it was anybody's fault. I don't know where that off flavor came from. And I've
Yeah, you said
talked to
it
a bunch of
smelled like
brewers.
pumpkin.
Like when you carve pumpkins and you know when you smell a pumpkin guts is what we called it.
Yeah.
And there was people who were saying it's an off. I think they said it was a, how do you say this? Acetaldehyde or whatever. How do you say that
Yeah,
word?
acetaldehyde. Yeah, it's like a green apple.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
it's in Budweiser.
see, I wanted to talk to you about that too because you were talking to Kyle about being a judge, and
Mhm.
that's when I realized like I don't know if I would ever be able to be a judge or cicerone status because people always talk about green apple and lagers. I've never been able to smell or taste that. Like I just can't. I don't know if
Get a Budweiser and let it warm up to room temperature, and then you'll.
oh geez, like what?
Yeah.
Why am I doing that to myself?
It's funny. I have the VJCP specs here, and I thought they had a.
Is there anything
Like
about pumpkin in there?
Well, I thought they had they have a separate thing about the flaws. Like
So I've never been able to taste green apple, and I've never been able, and I hear people say it all the time. I've never been able to smell or taste onion or garlic in an IPA. Just haven't been able to do it. I don't know why.
It just depends on the hop. Like a lot of the hazies, to me, especially, I mean, going back to Heady Topper, like they're very tropical up front, and then they have this like peppery, spicy kind of. It is like almost a little bit of a garlic bread kind of aftertaste.
Is that what it is? Garlic bread? That's why this is. I get jealous of people who can review beers with other people. I don't know how many beer reviews you've got to do with. I mean, you do the thing you said once a week with your girlfriend, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
say get these 2 books: How to Brew. Are you a home brewer?
No,
I'm saying. I mean, you definitely have the space and reach. Like, if you can try to get into, even if you just get like a Mr. Beer kit or whatever, like it changes your world. Because I mean, it's the whole difference between like you know, if you're a it's you and I, we grew up in the 80s and 90s, like way before smartphones and all that stuff. So like if you actually wanted to like make your own video, like remember people actually had like camcorders with VHS tapes in them, you know, and all that. You've seen that show, The Goldbergs?
Dude, I love that show.
Yeah, like you could be like, that's how I was as a not as a kid, more like as a teenager and college student, you know, just being like a total movie nerd, like whatever Roger Ebert said was a 5-star movie, like that's what I had to see, you know. It's a difference between, you know, being like a movie nerd who can like, you know, tell you like the best Scorsese movie and like why all the critics, like to being able to analyze it, and then to actually get camera and microphones and lights, like it's everything. It's such a world of difference. So like it's like to know how it's done. Same thing with beer, like because we can all, like everybody who's probably watching this or listening to this, like we're probably just, you know, beer nerds, beer geeks. But then to actually brew it, like you actually kind of start to, you get like, it's just like a, you know, scratching of the surface. So like the most basic like beer 101 thing, because you do have to know like just a little bit of chemistry and a little bit of microbiology, because you need to know like how the temperature affects, you know, the way the sugars are, and like the yeast, there's your microbiology, because you got to baby the yeast, because you know. And so I mean, this book, How to Brew by John Palmer, this is like the standard for home brewers for like I don't know, 20. This is like the 5th edition or something. I don't know.
Okay.
You'll learn the basic, and I do mean like basic chemistry and microbiology on here, and like you'll learn the acetaldehyde and diacetyl and dimethyl sulfide and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Get that book. They have it in. I don't know if you actually read. When it comes to books, I actually prefer hard copy where I can hold it in my hand.
Yeah, I don't like Kindle stuff, and I've never got into that.
Except for me, I like comics. I still have like tons and tons of comics on my Kindle.
Oh, do you?
Or on my tablet. Because I used to have, if you watch some of my old reviews from Albany, you'll see I had like, it looks like filing cabinets, but those are all comics. Just because I used to have I probably had like 3,000 Batman comics and all that stuff. But when I moved from New York to Florida, I had to sell that collection and get rid of all the physical comics. But I have most of them. It's funny. Just this one tablet that's smaller than this book probably has like that whole collection on it.
Yeah.
And this is another good one, is Tasting Beer by Randy Mosier, because this also it brings you like through the history, and it gives you like just kind of a general overview of general styles. Like it's like when we say IPA, like then like beer nerds like us, we can break that down into like hazy IPA, East Coast IPA, West Coast IPA, double IPA. And then like all those weird, remember like all the different color IPA styles from like 10 years ago, like white IPA, black IPA, red like they hardly even make any of those anymore. I do miss the black IPA style though.
Bro, I was just about to say, I am trying to get people to brew black IPAs again. If
you get into homebrewing, you can do it.
I should do that. Yeah, let's make my own black IPA.
Yeah, I'm never sure there's got to be tons of homebrew stores around where you are, and
oh yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah. It's kind of there's homebrew clubs too, like people, when it comes to this kind of stuff, and maybe because it's so male dominated, but it's kind of like, if somebody else is getting into something that you're already into, like they're like so excited to like teach you about it,
Yeah.
Like somebody will come to your house and show you how to do everything like for free that would cost an expert like $1,000 of your time,
Well, especially here in San Diego, there's a big home brewing scene. I mean, that's where Kelby from North Park. I mean, I hope I'm saying this right. Hop Foods, which is one of my favorite beers that North Park does. I think it's the most medaled home brew in San Diego homebrew competition history. Like that's how he started, and now he's got a spot and he's making amazing beer.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah,
but it's funny because you were saying that you don't like cooking, but you like brewing, right?
Well, I don't brew anymore. I haven't homebrewed
But you enjoyed brewing beer.
Years. I used to, but
yeah. See, I'm opposite. Like I love cooking, but I don't think. I mean, I've never really had the want to brew beer. I just like drinking it. But I should brew it.
It's not exactly a 1-to-1 comparison because like brewing, that's only one day.
Yeah. Yeah, cooking is every day. Like that's how you survive.
You brew a beer, and like it depends on like if you do all grain, that's gonna take you like all day.
Yeah.
Like, but if you do extract, it cuts out like a huge step. And so I mean, like it's the difference between something that takes all day and like half day.
Yeah.
I mean, I started out doing extract, and I eventually got into all grain, and all grain takes like all day. You start at like noon and you're done by like 8 p.m.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A lot of home brewers, they'll get up at like 6 in the morning. Actually, for you, I mean, you said you get up at like 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
You'll be done by lunch.
Yeah, it's time to do it. It's cool. Yeah. One of the cool things going back to beer tubing too is over the years of doing beer reviews, like I've met people who they were like, oh yeah, when I first started home brewing, I was watching beer reviews and you were one of the, beer reviewers I was watching, and now they're brewing at their own breweries. It's super cool. Like I don't know. It's just it's a fun community.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I reposted your story about doing the podcast, my own buddy was like, holy shit, I watched his videos 15 years ago when I was getting into homebrew.
Yeah, I'll get comments every once in a while, like somebody who's like, oh my God, you're still here. I thought like,
yeah, cool.
Where'd you go?
Well, I was going to ask you about that too, because I mean, I've only been doing but I've been around YouTube for 10 years doing beer stuff. Like you've been around for 16 years. Like that's a long time.
Yeah. I took these breaks here and there. Like I remember like in 2012, like I was like, I quit. That's it. And then I just started like, I would do like these unlisted videos that I would only post like on Facebook. And then, it's kind of like I would get like, it just becomes a grind. We got to do it every day.
Dude, of course. Yeah.
And then and also that's like when I was just getting like the most basic like no name brand stuff and like feeling the need to review it. I'm just and so I was like, well, why do I have to do like, the most basic bitch beer, like whatever is the most recent Sam Adams seasonal mix pack,
Right. Yeah.
like nobody really cares. But then it's also, I wasn't one of these, I had a lot of, and also being in upstate New York, like we weren't too far from, I mean, you were definitely within a day's drive of Treehouse and
Yeah.
Hill Farmstead, and people would like want to make these beer treks out there. But it's funny, I never actually went on those beer treks. I would just give them some money or trade for them when they came
bring
back.
that back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring that
Like
back.
I got stuff to do, but if you guys want to, if you want to spend 4 hours waiting in line, go for it. But anyway, you can't see it, but I have like kind of like my I did this with Kyle. I have like my lightning round questions, but
Okay.
let me give you some of these. So
Hopefully I have
what
some answers.
other beer tubers do you watch, or people on Instagram or Twitter?
Actually, I was going to ask.
Influencers, I guess I should say.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you about that because your background talks about Instagram, TikTok. Like I feel like I'm very like old crotchety. Like I'm in my ways when it comes to YouTube. I haven't gone over really to Instagram or TikTok. Like, do you like that format as far as like beer stuff? Like, do you get engagement doing that?
Oh, I get huge engagement on Instagram, and I just started TikTok in October. I'm up to almost 1,000 followers already. But like, I don't really. I'm on my TikTok. Well, this is only on YouTube, so I guess the TikTok followers wouldn't see this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really watch anybody else on TikTok. I'm just there to post and ghost, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah. No.
Doing my shorts.
Right. When it comes to YouTube stuff, like my job has changed over the years. So I used to be able to sit down and like, watch BeerTube stuff. So these days I really only get to listen to it. Like when I don't watch YouTube stuff anymore. I listen. Like and I do that like either whether it's Spotify or YouTube stuff, whatever I'm, have open at my desk, it's always minimized, but I'm listening to it. So I feel bad saying this, but I don't watch a whole lot of BeerTube stuff these days just because I'm not in the trading game anymore. Breweries aren't sending me stuff anymore because I'm not drinking hazy beers really. Like, but I still like I have a little like a tiny little circle of friends. Like, have you ever talked to Peter, the master of hoppets in Denmark?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did a couple collab reviews. This is back in the heydays of. I was thinking of like I kind of split Chad's beer reviews into like two, like a ace. Was it AD and BC or BC AD?
Yeah.
Like the New York days and the Florida days, and him and I did probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4 collab reviews.
That's cool.
We actually met in person once.
I just was going to say that I met him too. He's such a cool guy.
Yeah.
But so like I'll listen to his stuff just because I feel like I've met him. Like he's a friend of mine. So I'll listen to his stuff. I've met and hung out with Kyle that you just chatted with last week. So I'll listen to his stuff. I still will listen. There's sometimes where like I'll drink something and be like, something's weird about this. So I'll go to either your videos or Darwin's videos because you guys are, I mean, listen, Cicerone is like a big deal. There's not a whole lot of you guys. And so I'm like, if I'm tasting something or smelling something I'm not supposed to, maybe I'll watch a video or listen to a video of your guys's where like it explains it. But other than that, it's just not a whole lot. The guys from FLX Beer Reviews, we did a beer trade, I think like the last year and a half. It's fun because Mike's a Buffalo Bills fan and I'm a Patriots fan. So I like to just mess with him and talk shit about the Bills.
How'd you become a Patriots fan if you're from California?
So growing up in North, my dad is still a 49er season ticket holder. Like, dude, my family's so stoked for the Super Bowl coming up. My very first sports memory was at Candlestick Park at a Niner game in '86. But anyways, I was a baseball kid growing up. Like I liked football, but I never really like affiliated with myself with a team. And then as I got into junior high, I was a big like jersey nerd. So I wanted to buy a football jersey that was the same as my baseball number. And as a kid, I was number 11. So in 1994, I walked into a store and I saw this super rad, like red, white, and blue Patriots jersey. It was number 11. I'm like, I'm going to buy this. Like, I don't know who the Patriots are. I have no idea. Like, where is New England? I have no clue. And I ended up buying a Drew Bledsoe. Yeah. So I ended up buying a Drew Bledsoe jersey in his rookie year there, or the year before, or I think it was the year before or either the year he got drafted. They were 1-15 or like 2-14. They were
Oh
terrible.
yeah.
Dude, I brought this Patriots jersey home. My dad's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we're Niner fans. Like, why are you
Yeah.
wearing a Patriots jersey? So I just decided, I'm like, this team sucks. Like you rooted for the underdog, being a Mets guy. I was like, I'm just going to be a Patriots fan. And
I know my dad was always a Giants fan, and I was always like a Jets fan. Like just
yeah. And look, I mean,
I don't
it
really have
sucks
like a
too for you
team
because
anymore.
I'm saying, look at the Giants. Though they ended up winning 2 Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I hate
against the
the
Patriots.
Giants. I
Yeah.
know. So
I guess
yeah,
I would probably say like when it comes to football, I'm kind of like a Bills fan now, and like the last few years they've come like so close.
I know.
Orlando City is like the Bills of the MLS. Like they get like so close, and then.
Did you follow like the Bucks at all when Brady went there?
Yeah.
I mean, that had to have
Yeah,
been
because
exciting.
he moved here like pretty much the same time I moved here. Actually, I think I was here before he was, but yeah, when Brady moved here, like everybody in
Dude, they were
Florida
saying
became Bucks
when
fans.
he signed with the Buccaneers, they set the record for season ticket sales. Like it's wild what he did for that organization. But anyways, that's how I became a Patriots fan. So yeah, sorry for the long answer in the lightning round.
Yeah.
There's a few people who I listen to, but I don't do a whole lot of watching of beer tubing anymore, and I do. I feel bad about that.
Well, speaking of Darwin's actually an advanced Cicerone, which is like
he's next level.
There's only a couple hundred of those, and then there's the Master Cicerone. I think there's only a couple of dozen of those.
Do you think he's going to get to that point?
Yeah, eventually.
Does he have the want to do that?
Personally, I don't think that there's. I don't know. I probably don't know the program well enough, but I don't really think there's that much difference between Master and Advanced or whatever.
Oh,
but
gotcha.
No, next time I talk to Darwin, I'll kind of. I've been trying to get him on the show, but it's so funny. He only lives like probably 10 miles away, and like it's. Just
you guys could do it. You could do a podcast together at the same place.
I've said that, but like because of his work schedule, like it's just so hard in my schedule. But anyway,
like, did you ever watch or listen to the Four Brewers podcast or on YouTube? Did you ever?
I was gonna ask you that. Like, are there any beer audio podcasts you listen to?
Well, Four Brewers was one of the ones, which speaking of in-person podcasts, I've done in-person podcasts with them. Those guys are super cool. But yeah,
you wouldn't believe how many beer podcasts there are. It's nuts.
I bet there's a ton. But my whole podcasting thing, I started listening to podcasts like in the early 2010s, and a lot of them were health and fitness related. And I'm weird, dude. Like I'm a creature of habit. So once I find something that I like, that's really all I listen to. Like, dude, I still listen to 90s R&B. Like, I don't care about music these days. Like, I'm still doing that, So I never really got into beer podcasts. But I think too, I feel like I'm so weird in the beer tubing world because, like, while I'm a beer nerd and I really, really enjoy beer, I don't when I go to a bar with buddies and sit down and drink beer. Like, I'm not talking about the beer that we're drinking. Like, I want to talk about life and sports and like what our kids are doing. Like, I don't. It's weird. I don't know if it's something with my brain. I just don't have that want to get technical and be like, we're going to sit here and drink beer and talk about this beer the whole time. Like, I'm going to drink a beer, like, hey, let me buy you a beer. Do you like that beer? Yeah, it's good. Okay, then we're going to talk about everything else. So, I just, there's not beer podcasts that I listen to.
I have a bunch that I subscribe to, but there's only like I don't listen to every episode by every podcast because like usually it's this person from some brewery I've never heard of, and like it's also like it's competing for my time too because like I'm more like like I much rather listen to like news type podcasts or comedy or something, and like I follow like 100 or 200 beer tubers, but I don't watch every video by every beer tuber.
Of course, well, you
can.
Like,
I kind of want to just see like what the pulse of the. I don't know. Do you ever read Watchmen or see the movie Watchmen? Well, there's this part. I mean, it takes place in the 80s, but like at the time, like this guy who's like the richest guy in the world, he has like this like a huge wall of like probably 200 TV screens.
Oh, geez.
He's just kind of like trying to get the idea of like, and it's like every channel from like all over the planet. And he's like, that's me. Like I open up my BeerTube account and just go to subscriptions. And I mean, actually it's funny because it's like you ever heard the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule? So it's got like it's a cause and effect thing where 20% of the cause accounts for 80% of the effect. So I would say like 20% of beer tubers account for 80% of the content out there. So it's like the same, handful of people are making the majority of the stuff,
Right. That kind of goes back to you were doing those monthly things of like the most popular channels or whatever. And you're right. Like
Yeah.
the top 3 were always the same people.
Yeah. And it's funny because BeerTube, and I would say BeerTube in America is kind of dead. It's
Yeah,
the
it really is.
the most of the people who watch YouTube are all in the UK, and these are just the English speaking channels. Like, I can't even imagine what it's like in Germany, Poland, Belgium, Japan, anywhere. Like obviously those don't show up my feed because they're not in English. There's this guy,
Right.
I forget his name, is Brower. He gets like, I was talking about this with Kyle last week, but he gets like 5,000-10,000 views a video, but he
Oh,
only
that's
does it in
crazy.
Polish, and he doesn't do it
Wow.
in English subtitles because, like, I want to see what he's saying.
Yeah.
And he gets like tons and tons of views, and like if you follow him on Instagram or TikTok, same thing. He gets like huge following there, but like he only
And
does it in Polish.
nothing's
It's
in
like I
English.
don't speak Polish, and he doesn't. I
Right.
asked him like, why don't you translate it to English? And I forget what his reason was, but anyway, do
I
you
kind of
cellar
noticed
beer at all?
not on purpose. And I think I were you talking to Kyle about cellaring beer? It's stupid, and I agree with that because when these dudes are most of the beer that we're cellaring is high ABV stuff, right? Stouts and
Yeah.
crazy, barley wines or whatever. But most of the guys want you to drink these beers fresh. My problem is I have this weird, I'm sitting in a garage with 20 freaking arcade games. I have this weird like hoarding kind of mentality when it comes to stuff. So when I first started getting into beer tubing, I'm like, all right, I'm going to buy as much beer as I can because I want to have stuff to always be able to like provide content. And I started buying all these beers, and I realized I was putting them upstairs in my closet, and I like unintentionally have dude, I have like 100 bottles of beer up in my closet from like 2014. Like, why did
Wow.
I do that? I have no idea.
Well, you're
I
like
don't even know
the
what's up
beer
there.
museum down the road.
It's stupid. Yeah, it's stupid. Like I think I have a video on my channel called like my beer cellar, but I put it in quotations because like I'm not doing it on purpose, but like this is what I have.
Don't you have
And
a
I would get
full-size fridge in your garage?
I do.
Or is
Like
it like a kegerator?
I'm a mess. I have a full size fridge. I have a kegerator. Those are both full, and then my my closet upstairs is full. Like it's dumb. I have so much beer that I'm probably never going to drink it, and it wasn't intentional because, like you had
Well,
said,
if you
you're
want to
not
send me
supposed to sell
some,
it.
I'll be happy to take it off your hands.
Dude, I could probably put together a box of beer to send you, and you'd be like, I haven't thought about this beer in 10 years.
Yeah, it's funny. If you ever get to Florida, I don't know if you ever go to Disney World. San Diego's probably like what, 2 hours from LA, 2 or
San
3 hours.
Diego's, yeah, we're well, depending on traffic. Yeah, I'm like 115 miles from LA, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you ever take the kids to Disney World in Kissimmee, I'd be able to meet you, but I would have to take you. I would deliberately take you to the terrible beer store. I posted a picture of this on Instagram and on YouTube. It was back in the summer. The store is so old. Like, they have like cobwebs, and like there's literally spiders in them. And like there's beers that like right on the label in huge letters it says like 2014. And like I remember they're like from Schmaltz. I don't know if you remember that Jewish themed brewery. They did all the Hebrew beers.
The
Like
Hebrew, yep.
Yeah, they would do a collab with Terrapin every like October. It was called like a Beer for Hope, and like it would have the year like in big letters right on the label. And they're selling it at same price, $9.99 or $16.99.
That's so
And it's
funny.
covered in dust and spider cobwebs and probably rat poop and stuff. I'm like, hey, how about selling this for like $1?
Yeah, they've got like Stone and Joy by like July 2014 on the shelf.
Yeah. It's like, Stone and Joy by. Yeah. Wow, I haven't thought of that
I
one
used
in
to
a
love
while.
that. I used to love that beer.
Speaking of which, do you drink seasonal beers in season? Because like every seasonal beer is like brewed 6 months ahead of time, because like it's February right now, so somebody right now is probably making their pumpkin beer or summer beer. So the pumpkin beers come out in August, but like I'm not like in a pumpkin mood until at least September.
Right.
And the Christmas beers come out in October, maybe September. And it's kind of like, it's this paradox of like, do you drink the seasonal beer when it's actually that season and it's old, or do you drink it a season early when it's fresh?
Yeah, honestly, the only seasonal beers I drink these days are fresh hop or wet hop beers when they come out. What is it, like
Mhm.
October, I think. I mean, I joke around, like I buy stouts during the year, but I only drink them in December. We call it Stoutmas. But I like, for a while I kind of was drinking pumpkin beers in, the October month, but I don't know what it is about pumpkin beers. I can't do it anymore. I did it
Mhm.
for a couple years and I was like, no. And then I'll drink Celebration in, the wintertime. I absolutely love, that's a desert island beer for me. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a big like seasonal beer guy.
Yeah. It just depends on the ABV because like the big stuff, at least you can cellar that or
Right.
fridge it for like Southern Tier Pumpkin, Cigar City Good Gourd. Like those are both like 8 or 9% ABV.
Or do you remember
But
when
like,
Avery was doing like Rum King or whatever it was, and it was like 19% pumpkin beer? I'm like, what are we doing?
oh really? Wow, I didn't see that one,
Yeah.
but
Oh, dude. Remember, like Avery used to do Uncle Jacobs. It was like 21%. They would do like the most preposterous barrel aged beers. I'm like, you're trying to kill people.
yeah, it was probably like $50 a bottle, right?
Yeah, even back then it was like $20 for a 12-ounce bottle. This was like 2012 or 2013. Gosh,
That's
they did the
the
most insane barrel aged stuff. That's another
what's
brewery. Like I haven't
what's
thought
your
about Avery.
record? What's your record for the most you've spent on like a single bottle of beer?
Ooh, I've never bought a bottle of beer secondary. My one buddy went to Morning Delight Day in Decorah the one year for toppling, and I think the 22-ounce bottle of Morning Delight was like $41. Lost Abbey used to do their Duck Duck Goose release every year, and those beers were like 47. So I think like after taxes and stuff, like probably $50 for their wild ale, which is insane. Their Veritas beers used to be, I think, like $41 plus, yeah, probably between 45 and $50. But dude, like I follow those secondary pages and people are selling like bottles of old like Toppling Goliath Assassin for like $450. I'm like, you guys are insane, dude. There's no way.
I know my record is I bought a half empty or half full bottle, whatever, of Sam Adams Utopias. I think that was
Hmm.
like I got it on eBay. I think it was like $50. It wasn't too bad because like if that's when that beer is brand new, I think that's like a $200 bottle.
Like, honest
And
question, when you bought that half open, like you trusted whoever you bought that from to like send you something that wasn't going to kill you?
yeah, but I mean that beer. I mean, it's not like it loses carbonate. Like that beer is not carbonated. It's basically it's almost like a whiskey that way, you know.
Yeah. I
Um,
think I would just be
and
scared. Like someone's like, "Oh yeah, I opened this and drank it." Like, well, what did you do to it?
well, I mean, you're getting it on eBay, so like there's some kind of quality control there, or at least like you'd have some kind of liability,
Yeah,
because
that's
like it
true.
wasn't like you just give them cash behind in the alley. I
Right,
mean,
right,
like
right.
there's a credit card receipt and everything on that. And my other record is a long time ago, I bought a bottle of actual lambic, not the blended lambic, because when you see lambic on the store shelves in America, it's either a fruit lambic like Lindemans,
Right.
or it's a goose, which is a blend of like 1, 2, 3-year-old lambics.
Mhm.
Unblended lambic, like most breweries in Belgium, they don't bottle it. It's just a tap only thing they do there. But so I got a bottle of, I think it was Cantillon unblended lambic, and it was like $100 off of like some website that they specialize in Belgian beers. So, but
Was it
although I will say the $100 did include shipping coming all the way from Belgium,
Yeah.
because
Was
I
it
had never
delicious?
actually had a lambic.
Was it worth the money?
Um, it was, I guess, like in retrospect, yeah. I mean, it was like I mean, I think I gave it a 50 points.
Oh,
You know,
nice. Yeah.
but I mean, like, it's just something you can't get in America.
Right.
So
That's
like
the other
that's
funny
a
thing.
I was
Like,
gonna say like on Tavor, this is this app that I use to get most of my beer. I don't know if you can see this. This is a double barrel aged private reserve Eagle. Isn't that your favorite distillery, Eagle? I mean,
well, Eagle Rare is a Buffalo Trace thing. I love Buffalo Trace
yeah.
for sure. Yep.
This brewery's out of North Carolina, and this is whoops. This
How much
was
was that?
this is at least a 750 ml bottle, but I think it was $40. Yeah,
See,
$40 for 15% ABV. At least you get a
right,
750 ml bottle, but
right.
like
Well,
that's
and that's
way
the
out of my
thing. Like,
price range.
well, I just drank the not just drank it, but during Bourbon County, they did the 2-year Eagle Rare bottle, and
Mhm.
it's, what is it, a
Yeah.
15.9-ounce bottle, and it's $44. I'm like, what are we doing?
I
I'm like, I
saw
can
your
buy.
review of that.
Yeah, I'm like, I can get Eagle Rare bottle, like a bottle of 10-year aged whiskey for $38. Like, why is this beer more than that? Like,
I know, and
and
like
I mean,
regular Bourbon County, that's like a $14 bottle.
yeah, it's 12
And like
bucks here.
that's already a great beer. And it's like, how much
Yeah.
different is the rare version? Like, did you notice like a discernible
No,
difference? Like, oh, this is so much better than the regular.
not at all. And that's why I said if somebody gave this to you blind, you would never be able to say, "Oh, this is an Eagle Rare barrel." Like, no
Oh
way.
yeah.
You have no idea.
Are you like a whiskey and bourbon connoisseur or?
So I just the last 2.5 years have gotten into whiskey, and it's been like such a fun thing. I feel like I'm cheating on beer, but whiskey's so exciting to me right now. So going back to like, what's the most you've ever spent? Like I've spent like $300 on store pick bottles of like crazy whiskey that I probably shouldn't have spent that much money. But I kind of feel like buying whiskey at that price is a little bit more acceptable in my brain because I can open a bottle and I can pour it and then I can have it for 2 or 3 years and get multiple like pours out of it.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to spend $200 on this crazy whaley stout, as soon as you open that thing, you have to finish it. Like there's no going back. Like it's open, you're committing to it. Your $250 or whatever you
Yeah.
spent on it
It's
is
'cause,
gone.
yeah, beer is carbonated, you know.
Yeah, and unless you buy, Kyle's got that cool. I actually bought one of those. Gosh, I can't remember. I got it on Amazon. You
That's
can,
a
what you know
go
what I'm
ahead.
talking about? The little metal like stopper thing that you put on and it keeps the bottle carved. You can
Oh
keep it
yeah,
in the
yeah.
fridge for a couple of days. Yeah, I bought one of
So
those, but
I
a bottle of whiskey can sit on my shelf for the next 10 years and it's no big deal.
yeah. In my line of work, every once in a while I'll get an order for a liquor store if where somebody's buying like some $200-300 bottle of booze.
Mhm.
Even if they only tip like 5 or 10%, it's like already a huge tip, you
Heck
know?
yeah. Yeah.
And somebody bought this, I thought I had it on my Instagram, I was just looking, and, somebody bought like a $300 bottle of tequila. Comes in this really fancy, crazy it doesn't look like a bottle of it looks like the genie lamp or something, you know?
Yeah.
And, I remember taking a picture of it because like, it was, like, actually a birthday gift for somebody. I show up at this dude's house, he just answers the door shirtless. This happens all the time in Florida. Especially fat guys, they answer the door in their tighty whities. It's
That's the
100
best.
degrees out, you know? I'm like, put a shirt on,
You're like,
dude, you know?
no. Yeah, my
Like,
dad's
I wouldn't even open the door shirtless,
no, of
you
course
know?
not. Yeah, my
But
dad's a
anyway,
tequila guy. He's got a whole tequila bar. My dad has like 300 different bottles of tequila. It's insane.
yeah.
It's
We're
fun.
going super long, but I was
Yeah,
gonna
sorry.
say, I would love to get you onto a Tuesday Night Beer School episode sometime,
Okay.
and you can actually judge beer, like, to the guidelines,
That'd be fun.
and, like, you'll see, like, it's actually when you to some people, it's, like, super nerdy and kinda takes the fun out of it. To me, it's the opposite. Like, it's like, you kind of embrace the nerdiness of it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you ever wanna do that I don't know which style we're gonna do next time, but, if you just wanna pick something, you know, we can probably do it, especially, like I mean, it has to be, like that's a nice thing about, um Darwin calls them basic styles, which I think is kind of almost like a pejorative. I would call it classic styles, you know?
Mhm.
Um But, like, if you open these guidelines, you can download this PDF for free, and there's also an app, but, let me see, I'm just trying to get something alright, it's like Belgian ale, wit beer, like, their commercial examples, Allagash White, Blanchestay, Bruxelles, Celis White, Hoegaarden White, Ommegang, St. Bernard's Wit. You know, these are all fairly easy to come by. The only
Yeah,
problem
for
is, like,
sure.
anything that comes from overseas, especially, I would imagine the West Coast is gonna be, like, super old.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, no,
anyway
that'd be fun to do.
all right, so we're going on 2 hours here. I mean, I could be like Rogan and go like 3 or 4 hours, you know, but you know, I got stuff to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. I this was fun, man. I appreciate you having
Yeah.
me on.
Anybody who watched all the way to the end is like super awesome. I mean, if you can watch to the end of an 8-minute beer review, you're on. If you can watch to the end of a 2-hour podcast, well, this is
I will say,
available as an audio podcast. So maybe they're just listening to it in their car. I listen to all my podcasts at 2x speed because then it takes twice as long, or it takes half the time, I should say.
right.
It's like
Yeah.
a 3-hour Rogan podcast. It only takes 90 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and you'll cut this up a little bit too, because there was
Yeah,
breaks
yeah.
that we
I'll cut
took.
out the part where I went to the bathroom. So, all right. If you're not watching Joe, I don't know what to tell you. I'll put links, everything in the description, and we'll see you next time. All right. Thanks.
See you guys.
See ya. Bye.